right, what do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God!
Before they
Don't get brazen with me.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with, however it feels, and all that other stuff. Welcome, 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 welcome. It is me, Legal Vices, and we are throwing our hat into yet another trial ring. We're going to see how this one goes. It started yesterday. So we'll give a little bit of a background, and what we've got here is we've got to play catch up. Today is day 2 of the trial. But luckily, day 1 was only an hour long. And so we can watch that. They talk pretty fast, so I don't know if we'll be able to do it at like 1.25 speed or whatever. But they are just starting today's trial in the next few minutes. So we should be able to catch up with day 2 by the first break. And just so you know, this is what I plan on doing with this trial. I plan on watching the morning session live, and then the next day playing catch up with the afternoon session, and then watching the morning session live. That's what I plan on doing. We'll see how that works. We'll see if that works out. So we'll watch like half one day, and then we'll go back and we'll watch the last half and of the previous day, and then the first half of that day. If that works out, that's what we'll do. If not, we'll have to think of something else. That would be great if I didn't have this thing called another job, and if I didn't have to do this weird thing that I actually do occasionally called sleep. It is 10:08 p.m. here right now. This trial is rather interesting, just from what I can see, and I know literally nothing about this trial other than what has been reported in the last couple of days. I've read a few things, but other than that, I don't know anything. It's another retrial. I wanted to bring up one story here. Hang on, and I of course I was late because I was making a drink and trying to decide what hat, and this hat just isn't working for me. I have to reshape it. It's my borderline OCD is like freaking me out with the way it's kind of the brim is not sitting properly because it's just been sitting in a box all winter, and it's time to break out the starch and make it look good. All right, I'm bringing up this one little news article here that gives a little bit of background on this case. And where are we at here? Retrial for former Columbus Vice officer. He was a member of the Vice Squad. So that's where this starts, with an Ohio Vice Squad. Well, again, this is a retrial. So let's figure out what happened here. And the allegations from the prosecution and the defense are so widely disparate as to what happened that it's literally going to be a he said, she said. Hey, Megan Fox in the chat. What's up, Megan? All right. It starts out a prostitution bust turned deadly when an undercover officer failed to produce his badge on August 23rd, 2018. Allegedly, that's what happened. Now, the former Columbus Vice officer Andrew Mitchell is headed back to court for a retrial on voluntary manslaughter and murder charges. Donna Castleberry was just 23 years old when she was shot and killed during an altercation in the back of the defendant's cop car. All right, this is where you need to start paying attention to some of these facts. What was the cop doing in the back of the cop's own cop car? Well, Mitchell, 59, was wearing civilian clothing when he picked up the victim and drove to an apartment building in Franklinton, where he parked his vehicle, hugging the passenger door to the wall. The incident was recorded on Mitchell's cell phone per protocol, where Castleberry can be seen in disbelief as the officer attempted to prove his identity through some paperwork. Yeah, she did not believe that Mitchell was an undercover officer. Mitchell didn't have his badge or radio during the encounter. In an unmarked car, wearing civilian clothes, doesn't have his badge, doesn't have his radio. Castleberry then told Mitchell about a rumor she heard regarding a man raping sex workers. Soon after, the pair began fighting in the front seat of the car. She was in the front seat. Soon after they were fighting in the front seat of the car, the victim, she stabbed Mitchell in the hand and climbed into the back seat and began yelling for help. 6 shots were fired from the police weapon after that, and 3 of those shots struck Castleberry. According to his testimony from the first trial, Mitchell did not call 911, but texted a fellow vice officer for backup. Castleberry is pronounced dead in Ohio Health Grant Medical Center later that day, and Mitchell received 34 stitches and a blood transfusion. In the first trial, where Mitchell testified in his own defense, the jury deliberated for over 18 hours before ending in a deadlock. A mistrial was declared on April 15th, 2022. That's the backstory. And what is essentially happening is the prosecution is saying he's a rogue cop that kidnapped her and attempted to force himself upon her and threatened her. And as a means of getting her to comply, she resisted and called for help. He fought her. She stabbed him in the hand, and then he got out of his car and blasted at her 6 times, hit her 3 times. He's saying he was just doing his job, picking up hookers, and she didn't like it. She stabbed him, and he shot her in self-defense. Those are the arguments that are being made thus far. Now we're going to be looking at yesterday's. Yesterday, like I said, was only an hour long because they just did opening arguments, and then they went wherever the impound lot the vehicle is at. The jury went to look at the vehicle. So there's not a lot to get through the first day. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up a little bit here. And as always, we got to get the background stuff, the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Throw up Doggo Cam. There we go. Doggo Cam is lit. We've got the Doggo signal. And we have Kitty, who's been a member for 5 months of the Clean and Sober crew, says he can't sit with us. Don't know who we're talking about, but okay. And Michelle Cavarno's here, throwing some South African currency at us. Thank you so much. Happy Hump Day. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Well, you're going to hear my thoughts because we're going to get started here. We got 305 people here right now, 170 likes. Make sure you hit that like button. And again, we're doing this, we're flirting with this 36,000 thing, go up to 36,025, go down to 35,995, go back up, go back down, go back up. We're on the downswing, so we're starting to come up again. So that's why I structured this poll today. Did you like this video, and are you subscribed? Yes. Yes, I'm sure. Of course I'm sure. I checked again, and haha, made you look, but I'm subbed. That's the like and subscribe poll today. Take that. Make sure you're subscribed. It's happening to, I know it's happening seriously to Andrew, Legal Mindset. It's happening to me. It's happened to a couple of other people I've talked to. It's just one of these things they do on their purge. And I apologize for being a little bit late. I had 2 things happen. One, I got distracted. I was chatting with Danny on, who is at the Valo trial in Idaho. She's going to be texting as that goes through. And I was making a drink, but I made a mistake with my drink. I was playing through the recipe in my head, and I thought, I may as well make it a double. But that's when I realized that, the recipe was already a double. And then I remembered one of the ingredients wrong, and instead of half an ounce, which would have been an ounce doubled, I put like 4 ounces in. But anyway, it's a really bad attempt at one of my favorite cocktails. I just really, really ruined it. And I have to pour it out as we speak. This just looks atrocious. Ugh. And it's all because of me. I really botched the job here. This is actually, it's a great cocktail if you make it correctly. I'll make it correctly tomorrow. Ugh, but I can just smell that coin true. Whew. It's like 2 ounces. It's called a El Presidente. It's got 2 ounces of dark rum. If I'm just doing a cheap cocktail, I'll just use the plantation rum. White vermouth, like 1 ounce of white vermouth. I use Lillet Blanc for that. It's supposed to be half an ounce of Cointreau. I put in like a shit ton. And then a splash of grenadine, 1 splash of bitters, and a little bit of an orange. But this is very, very Cointreau heavy, and it looks very red. Yeah, it's very, very sweet and Cointreau. But as I said, I thought I was making a double, but actually I made a quadruple. So this could be really interesting by the end of the night. And all right, I guess that's it. Let's bring this up and start yesterday's opening statements and see how this goes. Let me move the microphone down here a little bit so you can see my cleavage. Oh, and speaking of cleavage, this exercise routine thing I'm on is killing me. Whew, gotta get less fat. But today was like the first sauna suit workout. Oh, I just feel dehydrated. Xcomer Triple Z, 7-month member of the Clean and Sober Crew, says $100 for dog cam, $1,000 for feet cam. I know colloquially I'd like to say that no amount of money would get feet cam, but I mean, that's a lie. We all know everybody has a price for everything. Just not sure what it would be. Probably not $1,000. Yeah, so there we are. Oh, I love an old fashioned. Old fashioned is one of my favorite go-to deals. But that's what I was having yesterday and the day before, and I wanted to kind of mix it up a bit. So I thought, I haven't had an El Presidente in a long time, and I literally just screwed up absolutely everything you could possibly screw up in that recipe. But this isn't cocktail stream. This is law stream, and we're dealing with the state of Ohio versus Andrew Mitchell, the sex worker shooting retrial of a police officer. Yeah. I said it wasn't, yeah, but that much Cointreau might be. It is. It's very much overwhelming to the point where I just kind of want to throw it away. But hey, it's booze and it's here next to me, so I'll just suffer. There's probably got like 800 calories in it too because of all the Cointreau, which is just essentially orange sugar booze. All right, enough of that. Let's hit this up. We will bring this up, and thank you for being here, everybody. The rules, as always, super chats are not required to interact with me. They're encouraged and never refused. But they will definitely means you'll get read. And what we do during the trials, we stream them across the bottom. They scroll across the bottom, and then it breaks, or when we need to stop for some reason, then we'll go through and read the super chats. Other chats, like the regular normal chat, we'll try to get to as many as we can, and I'll highlight original ones that kind of spark my interest that I happen to notice. So that's it. Let's get going. I know I've said that 800 times, but really, let's get going. This is interesting. We don't. Oh, okay. I see what they've done. Damn it. What? Oh, are you shitting me? Hang on. StreamYard in like the last 5 minutes have changed their screen sharing. All right, now I got to figure out what they want to do. Okay, share the screen as always. There we go. They rearranged things. All right. Gee, thanks, StreamYard. Love you guys. Here we go. We get a little bit of, weirdly, the camera is behind glass. I'm not sure if it's one-way glass or if it's just a plastic remnant of the COVID era. But they're behind glass, so it takes them a while to get the reflections worked out. But they'll get them worked out. And let's go. Let's see. The trial starts at about 16 minutes. All right. And the balance is kind of off in the audio because it's typical court crap. All right, let's go.
Do opening statements, and after opening statements, you're going to go on a jury view. Is there any opening statements on behalf of the state of Ohio?
Now, I've watched these just because I wanted to see if it would be an interesting trial. We'll comment as we go through, as we normally do with the trial streams. But we'll talk about this and see what you guys think in a bit. And let's go, starting the trial of Andrew Mitchell, the retrial.
On August 23rd, 2018, Donna Castleberry, a 23-year-old mother of two, was on the west side of Columbus here in Franklin County when she encountered the defendant. He was working undercover. He picked her up, suspecting prostitution. Donna had taken to prostitution after recently battling a drug addiction. She came up to the car. They engaged in conversation. Donna got into the front seat of the vehicle. They began small talk, and they decided upon a price for sexual acts. At that point, the defendant drove onto a lot near an apartment building that you will later see, drove around to the side and parked up against the side of that building.
Okay,
so that her door,
she's saying
her
this was
side
not
the
part of
car
a sting. This
right
was
up
just
against
him
the
wanting to get
building
laid.
so that she couldn't open the door and get out. The car was also equipped with child locks, so she had no way to exit the vehicle. After he stopped the car, he told her he was a police officer and she was under arrest. Donna asked to see some identification. He showed her a plastic identification card. She said, "Where's your badge?" He said, "I don't have it. I forgot it." She wanted more proof. She asked, "Where's your walkie-talkie?" He claimed that was in the trunk. It was not. She was polite. You'll hear her demeanor because there was an audio recording. The Columbus police at that time would take a cell phone line or some sort of recording device and place it in a hidden spot, typically in the door, and record the conversation to get the elements for prostitution for later use in court. So you'll hear her demeanor. You'll hear her asking for proof that he was a police officer. She said, "I know how Vice works, and I've never had it happen this way."
Yeah, and
She wanted more.
you're going to hear audio
He
tape
said, "I'll
of
text
this
my
whole
buddy."
thing.
That's what he said. Got his phone out and sent a text out to his team, who was away working on an arrest on another prostitute. She sat there. Nothing was happening. No cruisers were coming. No additional proof was offered. So she sat politely waiting. As the two sat there in the car, a bystander, a fellow, came out of that apartment building. He walked behind the car. He was walking to a dumpster. She took the opportunity. She rolled down the window, and she decided to yell to that bystander for help. And as you'll hear from that audio, this is when the defendant got mad.
Please, can you help me? Can you help me, please?
Help you what?
On the police line.
I am the police.
You're not the police. I know you're not. And that's false identification like that. That can get you in a lot of trouble. When he's tracking anything.
Can you stop it?
Can you help me, please?
That's the only way. That's the only way we can do it.
Oops, they won. Not sure how much of that was muted. I think all of that was muted, wasn't it? Crap. I know. I gotta stop. I gotta stop doing that. I muted it so that I could listen on my phone to see how the balance was, and I went full Elaine Brederhoff. Sorry about that. What I was saying was that the the allegations being made by the prosecution is that he would arrest them. He would say, okay, I'm a cop. I'm arresting you. And then he would force them to have intercourse with him in exchange for their release. That's what they're saying. So they're saying that was they would arrest him. He would force them into sex and release them. And my understanding is that it's controlled. The recording is controlled outside. I know, Megan, the whole thing was muted. That's why I'm repeating myself. So that's the story, and they're going to lay this out for you. They're going to lay out exactly what happened and why he did it. Well, let's watch and find out, shall we? That's all the spoilers I'm going to give. And whatever the objection was, they won because we get to hear the recording all over again.
Can you help me, please?
Help you what?
Call the police for me.
I am the police.
I know you're not. And that's false identification. I can get you in a lot of trouble again, so. When he's tracking me and saying he's a police officer and he's not a police officer.
Yes, I
He's
am.
acting like he's a police officer. And he's not. He has this in a fake ass bag. Kidnapping women. I've already heard about him and he already is wanted. This house just showing the picture, you know that, right?
Yeah, all right.
They've been showing the picture.
So you fucking.
Don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me.
Now, this is all inside the
Don't
car.
put your
Remember
hands
that.
on me. No! No!
She got a knife.
No! No! Get off of me!
It's coming.
No! No! Help me, please. I'm in the back door. Help me. I'm in the back door. He's coming. Get out of me. Please help me. Please help me.
And if she's going to point out here, notice she says, okay. I'm sorry. And apparently this was after he pulled the gun. She said, okay. I'm sorry. It calms down. And he says, fuck, and then starts blasting.
Fucking nightmare.
Those were the last words of Donna Castleberry. You will have the benefit of the entire audio from start to finish.
Yeah, that wasn't the whole audio.
It was synced up with a building video. It's not great video. It's from an older system, but it shows the car, and you can see movement patterns in that car. And that video was synced by somebody from the Organized Crime Commission, an expert.
Yes,
put
she
the audio
died. This
with
is
the
a murder
video
trial.
to try to lend some additional evidence here. And that was done at the request of my office, not the Columbus Police. You'll see when you look at that during the shooting, the car door was open and Donna Castleberry was in the backseat of that car. The defendant's charged with murder and voluntary manslaughter. These are two options for your consideration. We'll get into this more later, but just generally, murder is that he caused the death of Donna Castleberry as a proximate result of committing a felonious assault, which is basically discharging the firearm, knowingly causing serious physical harm. Voluntary manslaughter, while under the influence of a sudden passion or in a sudden fit of rage brought on by provocation occasioned by Donna Castleberry, reasonably sufficient to incite him into using deadly force, knowingly caused Donna's death. Now, the defendant has asserted, as you've heard in voir dire, that he was justified. He claims he reasonably believes she posed an immediate threat of serious physical harm to him. And the judge will tell you, officers are forced to make split-second decisions in rapidly evolving situations. And we don't dispute that, but this was not a split-second decision. This was not an officer firing to save his life. This was not an immediate threat. We will present expert testimony on this topic. And I want you to pay close attention to the timing of the shots. You heard them, the pop, pop on that tape. The first shot was fired approximately 47 seconds after the defendant yelled, "She has a knife." Then he yelled he was cut 2 seconds later. So 45 seconds till the first shot. Cut by a woman who we assert did so in a defensive manner, not by an attacker, not by somebody being aggressive. He did sustain a large slice to his hand. We don't dispute that. How it happened, we don't specifically know. But Donna was screaming for help. She was screaming for a passerby to call the police, call 911. She was begging, "Help me, help me." She was scared of him. She believed she was being trapped in a car by somebody who was trying to rape or harm her. Her actions were defensive and only began after he put his hands on her. She was trying to get away. She was trying to get help. She wasn't a threat when she was trapped in the back of that car with no way out.
This is just the opening statements. They said they're going to play the entire
Been a
video
threat.
later.
I submit the defendant would have sustained far more wounds. And as you will hear during this trial, he sustained a cut to his hand and another small cut. No further injuries, no documented injuries of any other sort, no knife slashes in that car. He fired 6 shots over the course of nearly 12 seconds. And you will hear that officers typically fire typically fire in 1 second, 4 to 6 shots. Could fire 4 to 6 shots in a second. Officers also have a duty to assess and reassess and account for every bullet they fire. This wasn't a shot cadence indicative of an officer firing to save his life and facing an immediate threat. As you'll see from the video, he'd been cut more than about 45 seconds prior before the shots. He had time, as you will hear, to release his seatbelt, to open his door, to push that door open in some fashion because it was found open, to reach down between the seats for his gun that was in a holster, to pull the holster out, to pull the gun from the holster, and as you'll see in the video, to at least get a foot out of the car, to pivot, to turn, and to fire at her in the back seat. There is no evidence Donna Castleberry had a knife when she was in the back seat. His own statements will reflect that. He never saw her with a knife in the back seat. The knife was found on his seat, was found on the front driver's seat of that car. Officers are permitted to protect themselves and use force when reasonably necessary and when they're confronted with an immediate threat. But as you will see, Donna was not an immediate threat. Any threat was over. And as you'll see from that video, the door was open during the entire time he was firing, giving him time to create distance or to contain any threat. We understand officers generally confront a threat, but there are circumstances where officers are tasked with saving lives, with assessing, with reassessing, with taking measures to avoid taking a life. He had the ability to create distance from her. She was in the back seat, trapped in that vehicle. He had a door open. Instead, he turned back into that vehicle and began firing at her in that back seat. She was hit by 3 of those bullets. The defendant here, he got angry. His decisions were based on the fact, not that she presented an immediate threat, but that he'd been cut. This wasn't a legally justifiable use of force. The shot cadence here, 12 seconds to fire 6 shots, is not consistent with an officer firing to save his life. It's retribution. Thank you.
Any opening statements on behalf of the defense?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we'll take a quick little break here and answer some of the questions. Drowlin, thank you so much for the super sticker. Always good to see you here. XCOM Triple Z, you've been hanging around. You've been hanging too much out with Hayden. These audio issues, just forgetful. And we don't know equals can't disprove self-defense, not guilty. It's not really kind of how it works. They have to prove murder. They have to prove that he killed this woman, that there was murder. But the defense has to prove that they were justified using self-defense. The prosecution doesn't disprove self-defense. The defense has to prove that they were justified in the killing. Jeff says, Angstkitten. Like that. Maybe I missed this, but what makes this case a state case versus a case brought by the city of Columbus? Is it just that the state chose to press charges? Well, you have a choice. It's a state case or a federal case. Even though it's being tried in the city of Columbus, it's still, prosecutors always represent the state, unless they're federal prosecutors and they represent whatever, the country. But in any murder case and anything like that, it's always the state versus the person, not the city. Because that's just how it is. There's state cases and federal cases. So it's in Columbus, but it is the state that is the prosecutor.
May I proceed?
You may.
May it please the court, Mr. Collins, Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Pritchard, Mr. Cable. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Pritchard just told you that Ms. Castleberry was not an immediate threat. Now, her own witnesses are going to tell you differently. So keep that in the back of your mind as you listen to the state's testimony. She just tried to tell you that Ms. Castleberry was not an immediate threat. Yet on August 23rd, 2018, Donna Castleberry was under lawful arrest. She failed to comply with that lawful arrest. She resisted that lawful arrest. The evidence will show that she attacked my client with a knife. Now, conveniently, what Ms. Pritchard didn't tell you was then that she proceeded to choke my client. That threat never stopped, ladies and gentlemen. Up until a split second before he lost consciousness when my client's training kicked in.
Okay. Okay. And this guy's a big cop. Big cop is saying little hooker was choking him out, and just before she choked him out and he lost consciousness, his training kicked in and he blasted her. I'm not buying that one.
And he knew it.
They better be able to prove that, because I don't believe for a second this little 23-year-old girl could choke out this big cop.
At that point, he had to shoot until the threat was over. But she just tried to stand up here and tell you that Donna Castleberry wasn't an immediate threat. The evidence will show different. And more on that later. Opening statements. As you heard the judge say yesterday, opening statements are an opportunity for each side to lead you down a path of what each side believes the evidence will show. Or is the opportunity for us, me, to lead you down a path of what we believe the evidence will not show. Ms. Pritchard just stood up here and told you that this was out of retribution. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence that you will hear will tell you differently. It's a roadmap, or preview, if you will. Now, every time Mr. Collins and I prepare for a case, we like to look what we call a theme. We like to examine what the theme of a case is, ladies and gentlemen. And when you get a case, you have witnesses, some professional, some not. You've got evidence, some direct, some circumstantial, and those all sit on the periphery of a case. But what the theme of the case, ladies and gentlemen, the theme is what's left at the core fundamental concept of a case. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that the theme of this case is one of justification. That is because the evidence will show that on August 23rd, 2018, Andy Mitchell was justified when he made the decision.
Close your eyes and tell me if she
force.
sounds like Lisa
And that's
Simpson
because
to
of those
you.
two components.
I just hear Lisa
that Mr.
Simpson
Collins
talking.
talked to you about in voir dire. First, that he had a subjective belief that he was in imminent fear of great bodily harm or death. And second, that belief was objectively reasonable based on the totality of the circumstances when viewed through the eyes of a reasonable police officer on the scene without the benefit of 20/20 hindsight. Now, with the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, ladies and gentlemen, nobody disputes that this was a tragedy that occurred on August 23rd, 2018, and it is certainly not lost on us that somebody lost a daughter, somebody else lost a friend. However, just like Mr. Collins talked to you about in voir dire, the judge is going to instruct you that you cannot consider sympathy or empathy while examining this case. And it's a tough task, ladies and gentlemen, because undoubtedly the state of Ohio is going to try to use the fact that we are all humans. You're going to see that video. You're going to hear that audio be played time and time and time again.
I don't know if that's
slow
good
it down for you.
I don't know if that's good
They're going to
for
play
the
it, and
defense.
it's sad, ladies and gentlemen. And we know you're human. However, Mr. Collins and I would ask you that every time the state of Ohio plays that audio clip, and every time the state of Ohio plays that enlarged video for you, you keep that instruction that the judge is going to give you in the back of your mind that you cannot consider empathy or sympathy. Those are not to be analyzed when examining this case. Now, what you are to analyze and consider is what goes on within these four walls of this courtroom. And we believe the evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that Andy Mitchell was justified in using deadly force, and that's because it was reasonable. Now, unlike the majority of criminal cases here in our criminal justice system, we have a burden here. However, that does not alleviate the state of Ohio from meeting their burden of proof. And it's a high burden of proof, ladies and gentlemen, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, that's the highest legal burden in our system. It is they that must prove to you each and every element of both crimes charged, felony murder and voluntary manslaughter, beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge will instruct you, ladies and gentlemen, that beyond a reasonable doubt is proof of such nature you would rely upon it in your most important of your own affairs. Care for an elderly parent, surgery for a child. If they fail to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt of those charges, then the judge will instruct you. Your analysis stops there. If they don't meet your burden, the judge will tell you your analysis stops there. You're going to hear two different theories that the state of Ohio is pursuing against my client. One saying that he shot to injure, that he knowingly committed a felonious assault, which proximately resulted in death. Second, that he acted in a sudden fit of rage or provocation, knowingly causing the death. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show that the state of Ohio won't come close to meeting their burden of proof. And there's four reasons why. The first, they will not be able to meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt with respect to the mental elements associated with felony murder and voluntary manslaughter. The second reason, because the state's own witnesses will contradict one another.
Okay,
The
that's a
third
problem.
reason is because the state's own witnesses are going to contradict the physical evidence that is presented to you. And the fourth reason is because of an expert that the prosecution is going to call. His name is Yuri Patrick. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, as he relies on false premises to come to his opinion. Listen as he ignores important, critical information. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, as he contradicts previous opinions and previous testimony
Just go
that
back
Yuri
20 minutes.
Patrick has rendered in the past. He wrote a book called In Defense of Self and Others. He has testified here in the state of Ohio in a seminal case. Listen, as we go chapter by chapter in this book and point out contradictions of what he says in this book versus what he's going to tell you on that stand. Listen for contradictions in his prior testimony that he gave to a judge or a former jury with what he tells you on the stand. That's the fourth reason, ladies and gentlemen, that the state of Ohio is not going to be able to meet their burden of proof. Now, even if you find that the state of Ohio somehow does in fact meet its burden of proof, despite all the issues surrounding the mental elements, despite the fact that their witnesses will contradict one another, despite that the evidence will show that the witnesses contradict with the physical evidence, and despite this expert witness who's going to contradict himself on many, many levels, even if you find that the state of Ohio has in fact met that burden of proof, that's when you get to analyze our burden. And we welcome that burden, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, people were asking how big the victim was and whether she could choke him out. Here, this is her.
By preponderance of the evidence means
that's me.
more
Never mind.
likely
There we go.
than not.
That's the victim.
That is our proof. It is certainly not as high as the state of Ohio's. He will tell you it is a smidge over 50%. So as you listen to the testimony, ladies and gentlemen, remember, we have to prove the subjective component, that it is more likely than not that Andy Mitchell had a belief that he was in imminent fear of great bodily harm or death. The second, the objective component, that it is more likely than not that his actions were reasonable, given the totality of the circumstances in the eyes of a reasonable police officer on the scene going through everything that Andy did on August 23rd, 2018. Again, it's more likely than not. So I want you to keep those two questions in the back of your mind as you listen to the testimony, as you hold the state of Ohio to our burden, and then if you get to our burden, as you hold us to our burden. Is it more likely than not that Andy was in imminent fear? He was going to be harmed or killed? And two, is it more likely than not reasonable? We believe the evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that it was.
This is the police
now, in
officer.
any other case in the criminal justice system, the judge will
And
tell
that's the
you
victim.
that typically you review these facts in light of your own experiences. That's not the case here. Your task, ladies and gentlemen, and it's not an easy one, is the judge is going to instruct you that you must view these facts through the eyes of a reasonable police officer on the scene. He's going to tell you that you have to examine the totality of the circumstances. And the judge will tell you, you cannot use hindsight in your analysis. Now, regarding hindsight, the judge is going to tell you that you're not to look at this, what this officer could have done, that he could have gotten out of the car, that he could have created time, that he could have created distance, that he could have created space. But as the judge will instruct you, ladies and gentlemen, you are to look at what an officer could have believed about the decision to use force. Well, there's a reason why, members of the jury, that this is the law of justification. There's a reason why it's written in this fashion. And that's because unlike judges, unlike juries, unlike Miss Pritchard or myself, officers on the beat are not afforded the luxury of armchair reflection. Every single day, our men and women on our police forces put their uniform on, they put their lives on the line, not knowing if they will return home to their families or their armchairs because they're doing their job. So that's why the law of justification is what it is. And you're going to hear all that. You're going to hear that on August 23rd, 2018, Andy Mitchell and other members of the Vice Squad had to be present at a
Vice
shooting range
Squad
for firearms training. This means that the entire unit went to the range earlier that day, took a refresher course on firearms. Present at the range was Sergeant Mike Evans, leader of the Vice Squad. Sergeant Evans is going to come in. He's going to tell you they all drove separately to the range and proceeded with that training led by Officer Gagnon, who you also hear from. He led the entire unit, including Andy Mitchell, through shoot, don't shoot scenarios earlier on August 23rd, 2018. 3 types of threats were presented to the Vice Squad during these training sessions. The first was a definite threat, second was a non-threat, and the third was an indeterminate threat. You're going to hear that when a threat was presented to the officer's training was enforced, that they are to shoot until the threat is over. Meaning, number 1, that the threat stops moving, and second, that the threat is no longer there. You're going to hear that Andy Mitchell was trained by Officer Gagnon on that day and participated in these shoot, don't shoot scenarios. Officer Gagnon is going to walk you through the protection that they use on the shooting range and what the controlled environment of the shooting range looks like. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, as he talks about the mechanics of how the range is designed.
So?
Pay close attention and contrast those mechanics logistically with that vehicle that you're going to go see.
What does how the range is organized have anything to do
How it would
with it?
sound differently at the range versus at a car. He's going to tell you that you have to wear ear protection, that it's absolutely required at the shooting range. And that's because if a gun goes off, even in a controlled environment, at the shooting range, a person can suffer a loss of hearing. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, what a shooting could look like or sound like in a confined space like that car that you're going to go see and what that would do to your ears.
Are they saying he stepped out of
Also
the car
present
to shoot
at
her
firearms
because it would hurt his
qualifications
ears?
Was Detective
Hell,
Laura Evans,
what? All right,
who
I
you'll
hate this
also hear
hat.
from.
Hat switch.
The state is going to call her, and she'll explain to you what her directives were from her sergeant that day. That the group had decided they were going to go down to the west side to an area called the Bottoms in order to work prostitution. So the unit got in their separate vehicles and drove down to the Bottoms. They were working prostitution undercover, dressed in plain clothes, not in marked cruisers. You're going to hear that Andy picked up a woman who he suspected was a prostitute. He did this according to his training. Something very common that the Vice unit did. He begins his audio recording so that he could record the interaction on a city-issued cell phone between himself and Miss Castleberry. Again, according to his training. You're going to hear that Donna Castleberry directed him where to go. Again, according to his training. You're going to hear that this training, if a police officer gets a prostitute in the car and you don't listen to where it is that she's directing him on where to go, that prostitute
her voice.
won't hesitate to jump out of a moving vehicle because that police officer would fail what's called the cop test. So Donna Castleberry tells him where to park his car. You're going to hear, yes, that he did pull up to a pole according to his training. That was policy, containment policy of the Vice Squad back in August of 2018, so that they could prevent the person who they were going to arrest from getting out of the vehicle and running. You're going to hear that that was according to his training. You're going to hear that probable cause existed for Mr. Mitchell to arrest Donna Castleberry for solicitation. You're going to hear her say $25 for the sex act, and then you're going to hear Andy say that he's a police officer. He's going to arrest her. Again, according to his training. He tells her, I'm going to put you in handcuffs. And that's for his safety, ladies and gentlemen, and her safety. Again, according to his training. Then you are going to hear the escalation by Donna Castleberry. You're going to hear her not comply. She refuses to answer his questions, and you're going to hear her resist arrest. The evidence will show that she has heroin on her person, that she is looking to score more dope after finishing her business. The evidence will show that she had a warrant out for her arrest. Testimony will show that our client had to arrest her and take her to jail, according to his training. The evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that Donna Castleberry was not going to comply with Officer Mitchell's arrest and then be taken into custody. So then you're going to hear and you're going to see that she starts scrambling, trying to think of anything to keep her from the inside of a jail cell, which again, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear is not uncommon. She tries to say she doesn't believe that Andrew Mitchell is a cop. But ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear that this was quickly debunked with all of the things my client shows to her, that he is in fact a police officer, but that he is working undercover. You're going to hear again that you're right, he did not have a badge on him that day. But again, ladies and gentlemen, that was according to his training because of a procedure and a policy that existed back in August of 2018, that undercover officers did not have to carry their badge on them. You're going to hear that he provided her a Columbus police identification card with his picture on it. You're going to hear that he showed her handcuffs, the keys to the handcuffs. You're going to hear that a U-10-100, an arrest report, a complaint that is specific to the Columbus Division of Police was shown to Miss Castleberry. He says, I'm going to call my buddy for backup. He tells her all of these things to show her that he was in fact a police officer and that she was in fact under lawful arrest. Then he tells her he's going to do a warrant check on her. He tells her, hey, as long as there's no warrants, I won't take you to jail. I'll issue you a summons and you can show up for the court date. However, again, ladies and gentlemen, according to policy and procedure as it existed back in August of 2018, if a warrant did in fact exist, Officer Mitchell had no discretion than to take Miss Castleberry to jail. You're going to hear, upon realization that a warrant check was going to be done, the situation escalated from non-compliant to violent in a matter of seconds. Donna Castleberry pulls out a knife. You're going to see that knife. It is not a small knife. She attacks my client with that knife. She feloniously assaults my client with a deadly weapon when he is buckled into that driver's seat of the Mitsubishi.
Okay, we need to push a pause here for a bit at the end of the. We're almost done here. We got about 5-6 more minutes maybe for the defense's opening statements. But first, anytime you have anything dealing with self-defense issues, there's one guy you want here, and it's this badass motherfucker right here. Law of self-defense. I'm like 3 cocktails in, by the way.
Yeah, I can tell. It's all right. How you doing, Jeff? I actually literally just got into the office.
And is that like a new background, or you just didn't turn the blue lights on? Your background is like black. That looks great. I like that.
Oh, is it? No, it's
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I messed up my lighting here in the office.
Yeah, I actually like it. Looks good. Kind of like high contrast.
It's still supposed to be blue, but
I
may have moved the light by accident, or somebody did. Maybe the cleaning people.
No, I hate when my cleaning lady comes because I have to reset everything in my house and then find out where she put everything. But this is an interesting trial. This is just something I stumbled across this morning, and it just started. They had an hour of opening statements yesterday, which were just wrapping up, and they started in Ohio 20 minutes ago. It's kind of a double self-defense case.
Yeah.
What the argument is,
I had not heard anything about it when I got your. I saw your invitation when I got into the office just a few minutes ago. So I did pull up a few news articles just to kind of inform myself. But I'd never heard of this case. It should be interesting because there's a ton of ambiguity here. There is a lot of use of force cases are pretty clear cut. I mean, people may try to create ambiguity like they did with Rittenhouse, but really all the evidence was consistent with self-defense in Rittenhouse. Here, what I can tell from the news reports, the evidence is a lot more ambiguous. I mean, this guy, the cop, looks like he's acting sketchy as F. On the other hand, he has a prima facie argument that he was doing his job as a vice officer, making an arrest of a sex worker or prostitute or whatever we're supposed to call them these days on the streets.
I prefer
And got stabbed. He needed 34 stitches for that stab injury. So it wasn't insubstantial. I don't believe anybody cut themselves enough to require 34 stitches. But then he doesn't have his badge. He doesn't have his walkie-talkie. This woman had a perfectly, and
it's an unmarked car, and he's
subject to
plain clothes.
violence than sex workers. And I also noticed this guy also had a separate federal case against him for actually exploiting sex workers into giving up sex to him. I don't know what happened with that. I didn't
it's
bother
still
to
ongoing.
dig in.
Just it was that was
2 years ago.
That's a surprise thing. Yeah. March 2019, folks, a federal grand jury indicted this police officer on multiple charges related to accusations that he forced women to have sex with him in exchange for not arresting them, as well as accusing him of lying to the FBI investigators and attempting to tamper with witnesses. And he was a member of a vice squad. The entire vice squad was shut down because they were dealing drugs. So I don't, but I don't know how much of that would come into the criminal trial. I know he's been tried once for this crime, and it was a mistrial, a hung jury. And I don't expect they would have heard any of that other stuff. But if you're aware of that other stuff, it doesn't look good. And I can't believe there hasn't been a resolution in the federal case yet, because I'm looking at, they're talking about it a year ago in April of 2022, and it's still not done. That's my understanding.
Okay, well,
I don't know if there's like
because if he's convicted on that stuff, then it may well come in.
Well, my understanding is they're not allowed to mention it. So I guess
well, he's not convicted yet. It's just accusations.
Yeah. So
this is an interesting I guess they're not going to do an Alex Murdaugh on him.
Yeah. The prosecution is saying she stabbed him out of self-defense, and he's saying he shot her out of self-defense. And it is possible for both people to act out of self-defense, as you more than anyone else are aware of.
Yep. Yeah, but you'd have to believe he was acting in good faith, right? So say there was none of this ambiguity, that he had his badge, he had his walkie-talkie, he wasn't accused of extorting sex out of sex workers. He just looked like a vice cop doing the vice cop's job, and she cut him, and he shot her. That would look like a pretty clean shoot. Yeah. The trouble is we have all this ambiguity because of the other accusations of misconduct, suggesting a bad motive as opposed to a lawful motive for grabbing this woman into the car.
Well, and so far, I think the prosecution are making good points, and I'm thinking that the defense is making some very good arguments for self-defense if they can prove it. But right now, the thing that I'm getting stuck on is the timing of the shots. He said they're saying he was stabbed in the hand, 34 stitches. He got out of the car and then proceeded to fire 6 shots over 12 seconds at her. 3 of which I'm kind of hung up on that.
Which hand was he stabbed in? Do we know?
I don't know that.
Yeah, because that could make a difference at least in terms of the pacing. So if you're stabbed in the hand you normally shoot with, and you have to shoot the gun in your other hand, you tend to shoot slower because you have less control over the weapon. Shooting for 12 seconds, 6 rounds over 12 seconds. 12 seconds is a long damn time. That's time to evaluate.
Seconds. Yeah, 45 seconds after he was stabbed, he started shooting.
Yeah.
So there's some timing problems if the state can prove it.
Right. So obviously you can't shoot someone because you're pissed because they stabbed you. They still have to be presenting as an imminent deadly force threat to justify the shots, and to justify every shot, by the way. And it's hard to believe that, 12 seconds is a long time, folks. Just look at your watch and count it out, that there's no point in there in which he could evaluate that she was no longer a deadly force threat.
Yeah, and that's why I sent you the text, because I was listening to this, and they're basically both sides are arguing it's a double self-defense argument they're making. I thought, well, gee, there's some guy that can be the expert on all of these things. But before we get going back in, tell us where we can find you and what we can do and what we can pick up from you.
Hey, I actually do have something. Let me pull something up you can share, because we have our Law of Self-Defense Advanced course is coming up in this little thing I'm pulling up.
That's right.
It's going to say 4 days, but it's actually 3 days. I didn't update the slide from yesterday. So you see that there? All right. So this Saturday, our Law Self-Defense Advanced course. This is our full-day course where we teach you how to be hard to convict, how to be an unattractive target for prosecution if you're ever compelled to defend yourself, your family, your property against criminal predation. This is the only one of these scheduled for 2023, folks. It's taught live by me, streamed to you on your computer, plenty of opportunity for Q&A. And even if you can't make it on Saturday, if you have a conflict, folks, we do make the replay of the show, of the course, available to all the registered students. So I would encourage you to sign up anyway, and you'll get access to the replay. Also, if you attend Saturday, this is a fire hose of information, folks. Lots of people attend more than once. I just got a text from a guy saying it'll be his 5th or 6th time attending this class.
Cool.
Because it's so much content, it's very difficult to absorb in one sitting. But as a registered student, come Saturday, and you can also access the replay after the fact. There are only 3 days left, folks. It's this Saturday. And you can still get a discount on some of our bundles for that course. Learn more and sign up right now at lawofselfdefense.com/advanced. Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely my pleasure. And
yeah, I need a new photo. I didn't have a beard when that photo was taken.
And
I got to
this
update
is
my photos.
3 days from now, not 4 days from now.
3 days, correct. Saturday, whatever Saturday is for you in Korea.
I have no idea. I hate international date lines and time zones now. And Michelle Caverneau says, this is what I was excited to hear you talk about. She talks for a long time. Yeah, she's going to wrap it up soon, though, but I think she's going a little bit over time. Marv White, I'm late. How far in are we? Do I need to rewatch this 45 minutes later? Well, you've probably already figured out that you probably need to go back about 25 minutes is all.
By the way, folks, that Saturday class is perfectly appropriate for someone who's never thought or looked into self-defense law at all. It's taught completely in plain English. There's no legalese. I will tell you that we get plenty of lawyers take the class for CLE, for continuing legal education credit, because most lawyers are not taught this stuff very well in law school. But it's an appropriate class for everybody. What's that?
I wonder if I can get some Utah CLE for it.
So here's how we do it. When I teach live, because I used to teach this class live in different locations, I'd go to a state like Utah. And so everyone coming to the class is from Utah. I would get it pre-approved for CLE by the Utah bar. So you don't basically automatically get CLE for attending. I can't do that with a stream class because people are coming from all 50 states and it's too cumbersome to get pre-approved for CLE in all 50 states. But most bars will allow you to self-report CLE. Yeah. And we provide a syllabus to the lawyers to facilitate their ability to do that.
I'm going to look into
But we've been approved for CLE in, 36, 37 states. We've never been denied. So I'm sure if you self-report, you'll get the credits.
I didn't think about that till just now, because it would certainly beat the hell out of listening to somebody for an hour and a half go, and then you got to go over here and look at this is how you file this particular motion with the court.
Right. Lawyers tell me all the time it's the best CLE they've ever taken.
I can't imagine it wouldn't be. Going back on 30 years of CLE, thinking, I don't think I liked a single one of them. And I'm so happy that Utah has now gone to an annual reporting system. Wolfram, you can't consider sympathy and empathy. Too bad the jurors in the Murdoch and Anderson trials were not reminded of that. I do like the statement that the defense lawyer in the Florida ice cream murder trial said, it's not innocent until proven guilty. It's innocent unless proven guilty. I love that statement. And that's what I'm using now instead of until proven guilty. Ironically, wasn't this the same vice group ended by feds busting them? Yeah, exactly the same ones. And Michelle, again, she climbed into the back of the car trying to get away. Child lock was on. So if you've ever been in the back of a police car, they don't have door handles.
Well, the handles are there, but they don't work.
Yeah, this isn't unmarked. So the handles would be there, but they'd either be disabled or child locked. Did he really have his police ID? No, he didn't have his police ID on him. That's the problem. He didn't have his police ID, didn't have his radio. He said it was in the trunk, but apparently it wasn't.
And of course, he would know, right? He would know that sex workers, I'll call them sex workers, I guess that's probably the PC term these days, are at very high risk of violence, especially the ones working on the streets. He's a vice cop. He knows this. He knows they have reason to fear being sexually assaulted on the street. And here he shows up without any police identification. What kind of response does he expect to get?
Well, and there was rumors that there was some guy that was walking around raping sex workers, driving up. And so that just adds to it. But again, these are all the allegations that are being made. These are all the assertions in the opening statements that both sides are made. We got to see what they come up with over the next few days here. Let's wrap this up and then get on with the arguments for today. I think. Where'd we go? Let's see. We don't need the dogs. We don't need that. There we go. All righty. Now, what was she saying is the all right. Well, first of all, again, one thing that's of note, it's just, it adds a little weirdness to me. They're saying the defense is saying that this cop was being choked out by this victim, and just before he lost consciousness, his training kicked in and he started blasting. We'll have to see if they can prove that. The audio.
Yeah, but
wasn't
you
very-
said he didn't. So I don't know any of the facts. All my information is secondhand. But were you saying that he didn't start shooting till he was out of the vehicle?
Yes.
Right. So,
and
he
and it
wasn't
was
shooting
weird.
someone who was choking him out.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I guess what they're going to say is his training kicked in, and it was weird. And I hope to God I misunderstood this, because it was just weird. The defense lawyer was saying, she set up this big scenario of the police training scenarios and the indoor training facilities they use, and how it would be much louder in a car. And I believe she was arguing that he stepped out of the car because it would have been really, really loud if he would have shot her inside the car.
Well, I mean, that's that's true. By the way, I've shot guns inside cars, and it's super loud.
Have
but
you? How
you're not
cool is
thinking
that?
about that. If you're fighting for your life, you're not thinking about how loud it's going to get. But I think the fact that he just had undergone training. I'm not trying to excuse this guy. You'd need to hear the whole narrative, and I certainly haven't done that. But I'm always sensitive to the notion that cops who just come out of training tend to be hyped up in terms of preparedness to use force. So they've just spent a couple days at the range, doing fast draws from their holster, engaging hostile targets, often multiple hostile targets. They're being tested against time limits, so they're striving to go faster and faster. Their scores matter, the time matters, and then they get out on the street. And I think, I mean, I don't have data on this, but I would suspect that they're at an elevated level of preparedness to go to the gun after they've spent a couple days in a shooting course.
And someone's saying in chat, the targets in the training were probably hookers. All right.
There's been lawsuits about that where people have sued police departments because they argued the police departments were using as training targets people who were representative of certain demographics in the community.
It's always the no-neck white guy with the folded up beanie cap on, pointing the gun at the guy.
They have multi-ethnic targets available, but I don't think any police department uses them anymore.
Do they have trans targets? That's all I want to know, because you're probably never allowed to shoot those.
I mean, at your local range, but I doubt a police department would be using them.
All right, let's find out. He was using the deadly and he was apparently buckled into the driver's seat while she was choking him out. Now it's weird. I mean, let's see what they can prove, but let's go.
Of the Mitsubishi. She attacks him. And this was no small cut, ladies and gentlemen, as Miss Pritchard just tried to tell you. This was no small cut on his hand.
Is that Kamala Harris in the background there?
Required 34 stitches. It required a tourniquet. It required an emergency blood transfusion and surgery. This was no small cut. Now, after she cuts my client, she continues to escalate the fight. She continues the attack, and she won't stop. You're going to hear that she maneuvers herself so that her back is up against the windshield. You're going to hear.
Oh, you mean like she's trying to get away?
Her foot on my client's throat as he was buckled into the seat. You're going to hear that my client is trying to gain control of her hands, and as he tries to gain control of her hands, the harder her foot presses against his throat. You're going to hear that at the moment that he believes, right before he believes he is about to lose consciousness, Officer Mitchell makes the split-second decision that he has to and releases her hands, goes, unbuckles himself, unholsters his weapon, and fires to stop the deadly threat. You're going to hear that his training kicked in. He believed she still had the knife. She is moving all over the car. She comes towards him to get into the back of the car. He thinks she's going to slash his throat because he doesn't know where the knife is. That is what the struggle occurred for 47 seconds, what Miss Pritchard was talking about. She told you that it wasn't a split-second decision to use force. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, while the struggle certainly did not last a split second, while it was not a split second that she went from cutting our client to choking our client, the decision to use deadly force, the evidence will show, was absolutely made in a split second. Now, the audio you're going to hear again and again, you heard, ladies and gentlemen, already. She says, "I'm sorry." Okay. But the evidence will show that just because the audio recording heard that, just because you heard that, just because I heard that, just because Miss Pritchard, Mr. Cable heard that, does not mean that Officer Mitchell heard that in that life or death.
True enough. That judge looks like he does accounting on the side.
I mean, it was pretty audible. Would that just be sort of the fog of war kind of defense?
Yeah, auditory exclusion. I mean, sometimes cops report they don't even hear the gunshots.
Yeah. I mean, this has some really interesting. That's why I invited you on here, because I thought this just has some fascinating potential arguments, and we'll have to see how it goes. Seeing as how they've both had an extra year to prepare their arguments, to refine their arguments.
Yeah. So I wish I'd heard the state's opening. I guess I'll have to go back and do that. But yeah, it's interesting because there's because of the ambiguity. So I got to get some of these facts straightened out. So I'm confused about whether she was in the front seat or the back seat, or he was inside the car when he started shooting, or
she was in the front seat and he went to the back seat. And I guess they're saying he was in the back. He was still in the car when they were shooting. The prosecution is saying he's outside of the car. And they said there's a video. There's a really bad video taken from some storefront or a CCTV somewhere that they've synced up time-wise that they're going to show during their case in chief.
6 shots. So was it a revolver? Do we know that?
Don't know that.
Yeah, because a revolver, of course, it wouldn't eject the brass, so we wouldn't. If you fire a semi-auto outside of the car, normally the brass would end up outside of the car. That would be an indication or suggestion, but you wouldn't have that benefit with a revolver, of course. I bet it was 6 shots. He just emptied the gun. How many police departments still use revolvers?
None.
I don't think so today, but a lot of the older guys were allowed to keep their revolvers if they'd been initially trained on them. They weren't required to transition over.
Okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, the judge will tell you, you cannot put yourself in Donna's shoes, not in Miss Pritchard's shoes, not in my shoes. You have to put yourself in Andy Mitchell's shoes as he was experiencing the deadly attack from the eyes of a reasonable police officer. You're going to go look at that car. Look at how small it is. Imagine that life or death struggle that I just described for you while in the driver's seat of that vehicle while he's belted in.
She seems to be dressed very informally.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear.
And again, there seems to be a lack of hair products in Ohio.
As part of this case matches,
or at least a brush. She has like a little spider egg thing on the back of her head.
That I just told you.
I guess she must have a cat with dark hair.
As we present that corroboration, our burden, as you are listening to the testimony, remember it. Remember it as you hear all about the multiple felonious assaults on Andy Mitchell.
It's like this current generation of female lawyers. They make them throw away their hairbrushes first year.
He was in fear of serious harm or death, an imminent fear of serious harm or death. We believe the evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that it is more
I wonder if she's
likely than
wearing
not
yoga pants.
that Officer Mitchell absolutely was afraid for his life. Ask yourself, is it more likely than not that his decision was objectively reasonable in light of the totality of circumstances through the eyes of a reasonable police officer? Now, how are you going to judge what a reasonable police officer would do on that scene? You've heard a lot of discussion about expert witnesses. You're going to hear from our expert, a man by the name of Kevin Davis. He's out of Akron, Ohio, who's been a law enforcement officer for almost 40 years.
I think I know Kevin.
He's a
Really?
certified use of force analyst. He's an instructor with the Department of Homeland Security and has impeccable credentials. Mr. Davis is going to take those facts that I just described for you in that life or death struggle, and he's going to help you apply them to the law. The judge is going to talk to you about factors that you are to take into consideration when determining and evaluating whether use of force was in fact reasonable. Keep these factors in the back of your mind. You'll hear testimony about them. You're going to hear testimony about the severity of the crime at issue. Evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that felonious assault is a very serious crime. The evidence will show that our client was attacked with a knife and then choked, a severe and violent attack. Evidence will show that the decision to use deadly force with respect to that factor while evaluating that factor was more likely than not reasonable. The second factor, whether Ms. Castleberry posed an immediate threat of physical harm or death to our client. Again, our client was slashed with a knife that required a tourniquet, 34 stitches, an emergency blood transfusion, and surgery. You're going to see pictures of that gash. Evidence will show that his decision to use deadly force in light of that factor is more likely than not reasonable. The third factor, whether Ms. Castleberry was actively resisting or attempting to evade arrest. You heard this already. The evidence will show that she was actively trying to evade arrest and continued to escalate the situation. The evidence will show that with respect to this factor,
I don't know about that.
than not that his decision to use force was reasonable. The fourth factor that you're going to hear testimony about is the suspect's demeanor, whether she was intoxicated or non-compliant. You're going to hear that she was on cocaine, she was on fentanyl, a veterinary drug. You're going to hear that she consumed these substances no more than 3 hours before the incident. You're going to hear that she was non-compliant. So with respect to that factor, ladies and gentlemen, evidence will show that it is more likely than not reasonable. The fifth factor is the duration of the confrontation. Confrontation and attack lasted 47 seconds. And for 47 seconds, the struggle of life and death did not stop until Andy Mitchell shot to stop the threat. Evidence will show that with respect to this factor, the duration of the confrontation, that his decision to use deadly force was more likely than not reasonable. The sixth factor that you're going to hear testimony about is the possibility of a suspect being armed. Evidence will show, ladies and gentlemen, that this was no possibility. This was a fact. Donna Castleberry was an actual threat on August 23rd, 2018. This was an uncontroverted fact, ladies and gentlemen, that on August 23rd, 2018, the evidence will show that Donna Castleberry was armed. When evaluating that factor, evidence will show that it is more likely than not that our client was in fact reasonable in his decision to use deadly force. Now, the judge is going to give you an instruction that says a mistaken officer can still be reasonable. So even if Andy Mitchell was in fact mistaken about
more likely than not, that sounds
where
like
the
the
knife
old
was in
Ohio
that
burden of
vehicle
proof on
August 23rd,
self-defense.
2018, he's allowed to be mistaken, and the judge is going to tell you he's allowed to be mistaken, so long as you would find that mistake be reasonable. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we do not believe that the state of Ohio will be able to meet its high burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, to hit those 4 points again, that's because the state's witnesses will contradict one another. The state's witnesses are going to contradict the physical evidence that was found. They're not going to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the mental elements associated with the crimes they have charged my client with. And fourth, because of the expert, because of all of the false premises that Mr. Patrick relies upon. Again, members of the jury, even if you do find
God, her statement has more endings than Return of the King.
Met their burden of proof.
Jesus.
We believe at the end of the trial, we will have shown you that it is more likely than not that Andy Mitchell had a subjective belief that he was in imminent fear of great bodily harm or death when he made the decision to use force on August 23rd, 2018.
Oh,
We
it is the
believe
old
evidence
standard.
will show
Hmm.
that it is more likely
When
than
did it
not,
change?
when reviewed the totality of the
About a year
circumstances,
after
the totality
this.
of those
Okay.
factors through the eyes of a
So that's worth
reasonable
talking
police
about.
officer
That
standing in
complicates
Andy
things for the
Mitchell's
defense
shoes,
considerably.
that it was more likely than not reasonable. As such, my partner, Mr. Collins, will come before you at the end of trial and ask that you find Andy Mitchell not guilty of the crimes charged. Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of the opening statements, and we've started this. But while I bring this up, first of all, this is one thing you want to be aware of. 3 days left to sign up for this amazing course. Saturday. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about this. I know you told us about it, but you can never talk about it enough while I bring this up.
Of course, of course. This is our full day law self-defense advanced course, suitable for everybody, from people who've never thought about self-defense law before to criminal defense attorneys, judges. We have judges take this class for continuing legal education. Law enforcement comes and takes this class. Old ladies who bring little Tupperwares of cookies to the class come and take this class. It's for everybody. It's our full day class taught live by me, streamed to your computer, on how to be hard to convict, how to be an unattractive target for prosecution if you're ever compelled to defend yourself, your family, your property against criminal predation. It's the only one scheduled for this year, Saturday, April 15th. That's this Saturday, folks, 3 days away. If you miss it, you're waiting till 2024 for the next class. Don't do that. You don't know when you're going to be attacked. That's up to the bad guy. Learn more, register at lawofselfdefense.com/advanced.
And you've just raised a very interesting question. Where someone here, and it's Trenton says it wouldn't still be under the old standard for court, would it? The laws that are applicable at the time you are charged, or I mean, the time the act is committed, are the ones you're held by. And you're saying the standard of proof has changed.
What's her date of death? I mean, when did this event occur? They keep saying they refer to 2018, but
the law changed in 2018.
No, it changed in 2019.
Okay,
so it's definitely after this event. But I would like to get the
August 2018, sometime in August 2018. Yeah.
Okay, so folks, in the old days, 100 years ago in America, self-defense was a classic affirmative defense, and that means that the defense had both the burden of production and the burden of persuasion. The burden of production has to do with the notion that before you can raise a legal defense, there has to be some more than 0% evidence to support that legal defense. Because if there's no evidence, the legal defense doesn't exist technically under the law. So it's not like you have some universal right to argue self-defense in front of a jury. There has to be some evidence to support self-defense. The good news is you don't need much evidence. It's basically a more than 0% evidence threshold. And if you meet that, then you do. You've met your burden of production. You can argue self-defense to the jury. The next question is, who has the burden of proving or disproving self-defense? Well, in the old days, affirmative defenses, the defense had the burden of proving self-defense by a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. And that's why this defense attorney keeps using that phrase. It's more likely than not. You'll see that it's more likely than not. Because although 49 states had changed that standard, 49 states had made self-defense essentially a negative element of the crime. So the state had the burden. In 49 states, the state had the burden to disprove self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. They'd all moved the burden from the defense to the state, except for Ohio. Ohio was the last holdout that kept the burden of proof on self-defense on the defendant to prove it by a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not, until March 27th, 2019. And then Ohio changed the burden, put it on the state, just like every other state does. But this event occurred in 2018. And therefore, this defendant is stuck with the law as it existed then, because the change in burden, shifting it to the state, did not apply retroactively. So this defendant, although today, if he committed these same acts and was claiming self-defense, the state would have to disprove his claim of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt. Because this event occurred in 2018, he has the burden to prove his claim of self-defense by a preponderance of the evidence.
That is problematic for the defense.
Because the state really doesn't have to do anything, right? The burden's on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, first they have to prove murder. They have to prove that he committed the crime, and then there has to be the justification for it. Correct?
Yeah, but when you claim self-defense, you concede the crime, because when you claim self-defense, you're not saying it wasn't me, I was someplace else, I have an alibi. You're saying, yeah, I did it, I shot that person, but I did it in self-defense. So if the self-defense claim fails, all that's left is effectively a confession.
And he's being charged with voluntary manslaughter and murder.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So the murder would be, with malice. I mean, that just means you intentionally killed somebody. And the voluntary manslaughter would be that you did it in what would be called adequate provocation. So there was something that drove you to it, that changed it from being a cold-blooded killing to a hot-blooded killing. And a fight is a classic adequate provocation circumstance that would mitigate what would have been a murder down to a manslaughter. And manslaughter still sucks, especially with a gun. It's probably good for 20 years in prison in Ohio. But murder's often life without possibility of early release. And manslaughter, even if it's 20, you often, in many states, you're eligible for parole after a third of the sentence if you behave yourself in prison. And so you might get out. I mean, the average time served in America for killing someone is actually something like 5 years or 6 years. Mostly because those are manslaughter.
None of this is legal advice to solve your problems with only 5 years in jail, just in case you're wondering. But 5 years, really?
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of the cases get pled out to manslaughter, so they don't have to go to trial. And then you're doing, you don't get the max for the manslaughter. You get 10 years for the manslaughter. You serve half that time and you're out.
All right. Well, geez, we have now wrapped up. We're about an hour and 10 minutes behind today's trial. So we're gonna. People are talking pretty fast in this for a change, which is really unusual these days. So I don't know if we're going to be able to watch it at 1.25 speed, but we'll give it a try and see how we do. So we're going to start with today. The prosecution is starting with their case in chief about an hour and 10 minutes ago. So let's bring this up and hear what they are saying for the arguments today. And let's see, how are we doing here? 699 concurrent viewers and 517 likes. I don't have to go all brunk on your ass and threaten to shut this down because you're all doing your jobs today. Congratulations. I'm proud of y'all. You're
doing the bare minimum.
You're finally learning to hit the like and subscribe button. All right. Let's see. Sex worker shooting retrial. That's where we are. This is the tax attorney judge.
Beautiful day to go on the jury view yesterday. Sometimes I send poor jurors out. And
oh my God, this is like the guy with the red stapler from Office Space.
Any witnesses on behalf of the state of Ohio?
How's he going to stapler here? Give me my stapler. Oh, she's wearing blue today. Better than beige. Sort of looks like my Kia Optima I used to own.
Brought him up to the witness stand.
Maze around here. Oh yeah.
Oh, my dealer called me today and said that he has a Rolex Hulk in that he wants me to take a look at. I'm excited to go there.
A what?
The Rolex Hulk with the green bezel and the green dial.
Oh, right, yeah.
Gotta be checked. Oh, he's a wow. That's a beard and a fucking half.
Who you are and what
Jesus.
My name is Officer Matt McDaniel.
This is like a guy who's. What was that?
It looks like a spray-on beard.
Seriously, this is like a guy that was born with a 5 o'clock shadow. Holy crap!
I talking about his Rolex dealer, folks.
Yeah. God, just looking at this picture, I feel like I'm full of estrogen. That's a beard and a half there. Jesus. All right. Sorry, McDaniel. Go ahead.
Daniel, with Columbus Police, will be 16 years in July.
Wow.
Currently with the community response team for Zone 5, which covers.
It's like he was got drunk at a party and they drew dicks on his face and he had to take a Sharpie and fill it in.
What does the critical response team do?
Seriously.
What does the CRT critical response team do?
Oh, community response team.
Community response. I'm sorry.
God, he's like,
so
fuck it, I can't.
We're actually a bike unit, so any kind of parades, protests that might happen, any kind of events, we're on bikes around the area, trying to support the security for the event, and also security for the citizens.
Back on August 2018, were you working that assignment?
No, ma'am.
What were you working at that time?
So at that time I was working the 19th
like a chia pet beard.
First shift.
What side of town is that?
That's the Hilltop area.
All right. And were you on patrol or what was your assignment?
Yeah, I was on patrol.
That's
I
gonna
was
look
driving
so-
a cruiser that day.
Working the is at
Marked
a
cruiser in
zit.
uniform?
Yes, ma'am.
This guy's beard just
Uniform
looks so
different from the one you
cool
have
when
on
it goes
today?
full
Yes, I
white.
was in a white
Jeez.
shirt with the undervest, not the outervest.
Right.
Different body cam as well. But
And what shift were you working then?
the first shift. It
Working
was
by-
7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay, sorry. Were you working by yourself?
Yes.
And was your uniform equipped with a body camera?
Yes.
Where was the body camera worn on the front?
Same spot as the new model is now. I was just wear it low.
What do you think about the body
cam?
cams
So
being
you're pointing
worn
to the front
right
of your
where they're
body, to the
holding their
record, kind of
weapons?
low
I
on the
hate
abdomen
that.
area?
Yes.
Tell ladies and gentlemen how a body camera works.
So for that model or for this model or
The model at the time.
okay. So the model at the time.
I mean, the problem
we
is
had a
ideally
one-minute look back
you'd have it
from
placed where your eye is, right?
press
So the
button,
camera's
you see
capturing
we'll
what
press
you're
the button,
actually seeing.
then the body
And they
camera
make them so you can, carry
the
them on
minute
the side of
prior
your
to
head, but the
pressing that
cops
button,
hate it
there was
because
video, but
now
no
you have a
audio.
hard object next to your
So then
head
once the button's
if you
pressed,
get
it'll
hit.
record the events.
So they got to
So
find
you
another place.
hold that
Sometimes
down
it's
to
the
turn.
shoulder. That's not too bad,
So
but
when
it's
you play
still
that
close
back,
to your
there's a
head.
period of sound.
Yeah.
Center
And that-
chest. Then when you bring the
that
gun up,
really
it blocks
plays it.
everything.
Yeah.
Back on August 2018, did you have occasion to be called to Yale and Bellows?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you become involved in that?
I believe at the time there was an officer in trouble call that came out. I was relatively close from what I remember. I was new
You
to the
can't
precinct,
remember? Didn't you
new to
already
the area,
testify once
kinda
about this?
lost where I was going. Hadn't worked the West Side before, so officer in trouble call came out. It was kind of hectic, like it normally is when it's sometimes you don't know what's going on, you don't know where it's at, but you just know to go. So officer in trouble call went out. They gave a location, and I just proceeded to location.
Did that call come out over your police radio or through a phone, or how did you get that?
The dispatcher gave it to us. That's how we got it.
So you go to the area. When you get there, what's happening?
So when I arrived, I remember that there were 2 citizens off the side. They're just kind of hanging out. I can't remember what they're exactly doing. And then I saw the vehicle off the side when I pulled up with Officer Carter, who's a canine officer. He was rendering aid, a canine officer. And he was rendering aid to Mr. Mitchell as kind of everything was going on. When I walked up, I saw Miss Castleberry in the back seat. She didn't appear to be moving at the time. Didn't appear to be breathing at the time.
Columbus, Ohio is where I
training
was on a
experience
motorcycle
at the
trip.
time
I pulled
was
into a hotel
to
parking
keep
lot
the
where I was going to
evidence
stay
where it's
that
at,
night, and the
not
place was
pointing
so
around and touching
sketchy. I
anything.
just rolled right back out of the parking
Add
lot and
my
left. I never even went into
fingerprints
the
from DNA
building.
to the scene.
What a dump.
So I stood there and waited with Mr. Mitchell's gun as they gave aid to him. And
Best Western my ass.
Okay, so you were not the first on the scene. Officer Carter appears to have been.
yes, ma'am.
And you said Officer Carter was giving aid to Mr. Mitchell.
Mhm.
And where was he physically located at the scene?
So he was seated. So where the car was parked, where the driver's side door was open, from what I remember, he was kind of seated with, seated with his back against the driver's side door, feet towards the rear of the car, as Officer Carter was running aid to his arm. I can't remember which arm. But
And were there any doors to the vehicle open when you first got there?
just the one with Mr. Mitchell, I believe.
The driver's side
The
door.
driver's side front door.
And you said you saw Miss Castleberry. How were you able to see her?
Through the back. She was in the
All the holes.
rear driver's side behind the driver, where she was seated at the time. So I could see her through the window.
Did you open?
She was
the-
highlighted in red.
I believe I did. I don't recall
Indian
exactly,
man.
but I think I did.
We would see on your body cam.
Yeah, you can see my body cam, yeah. But
Good.
it's been a while.
You said you saw a gun. Where did you see a gun?
I believe it was laying on the ground next to the car. In close proximity where Mr. Mitchell was at.
Did you take any note or study that gun or make any observations about it?
No.
Did you see any other weapons?
I recall a knife. I don't
Well, again,
remember
this is
where exactly
interesting.
it was
That
at.
it's a
I believe
police
it was in the car.
officer testifying for the prosecution against a police officer. Just
Did
a
you call for medics?
Yes.
fun
Well,
fact.
I don't know if I did or who did. Somebody called for medic.
Okay. And were you there when medics arrived?
Yes.
You stayed around until detectives arrive, I assume?
Yeah. So as Mr. Mitchell was getting treated, Donna Castleberry was transported away. I stayed at the side of the car just to keep that scene as sanitary as possible. No way to approach and all that. So that way I could stay there until detectives arrive.
At this time, were you part of Vice Squad?
No, ma'am.
Were you familiar with Vice policies at all?
No, ma'am.
Did you know Andy Mitchell on that day?
No, ma'am.
And familiar with Donna Castleberry prior to that?
Did he say what kind of gun it was?
I'm going to show you a few exhibits. Same as the last one. I've got States Exhibit H20, H21, H25, and H26. If I may approach the witness now.
You may.
Navigate supports here. I'm going to put these up on the screen here shortly. Take a quick look at those. Tell me if you recognize those.
Yep. the firearm. Looks like there's a jam in it.
What is the firearm?
Sorry, it looks like there's a jam in the firearm.
A jam in the firearm. So apparently it's not a revolver.
Driver's seat for the vehicle.
Let's start with State's Exhibit H20.
I guess we'll see now.
Yeah.
Oh, if they show us the evidence.
if the camera can get out of the way of the pole.
State's Exhibit H20. Is that the firearm you saw that day?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a cone by it. Is that
Yeah,
something
it's
that the detectives or crime scene search?
That's just a Glock, isn't it?
Yeah, they would place that after. I went there for
The grip looks funny for a Glock,
Yeah.
but the trigger guard looks like a Glock. I need to see a bigger picture.
Too, and what that is. Do you recall seeing that object?
I believe that's a cell phone. I remember. I'm not sure though.
State's Exhibit H21.
No, it's not a
Is that
Glock.
close to
It's
the
a Smith. It looks like a Smith
Smith
M&P.
Thought it looked like there was a jam in the gun.
Yeah, looking at it now, it looks like it's jammed.
It's got those lines on the slide.
H25. Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
Yeah, the
nice
grip
seat
has
on
this
the
curved
seat.
rear
the
textured area. That's the giveaway for the M&P.
And is that what we're looking at next to the piece of paper?
Yes.
And close up.
God, I miss American shooting. Jesus.
It's not a high point, folks.
Is that a close up of the knife as you saw it that day?
The M&P is a good
Does that
pistol,
appear to be a holster?
Yes,
especially the
I'm
2.0.
I'm going to be in Houston for Anime Matsuri from the 10th to the 13th. Anybody in Houston, get me to a shooting range
previously
for
seen your
Christ's
body
sake.
cam
I
footage
just
from that day,
need
is
to
that
shoot
correct?
weapons
Yes, ma'am.
again.
So you would recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
We're ready for.
I miss guns. I really, really do.
What are we looking at right here?
So that's me in my cruiser, pulling up to the scene. I believe. Yep. So I just had pulled up. Here's the two citizens standing to the side with the vehicle with Mr. Mitchell by the door.
Okay, so this is the look back part. We don't get sound for a minute, correct?
Right. Yeah.
But as you pulled up, you saw some civilians on the scene,
Mhm.
and this is you approaching.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that white vehicle Officer Carter's vehicle then?
Yes, that's Officer Carter's canine vehicle.
He does look like Bluto. That's funny. Okay, that's the officer there by the door of the car. That's the
I'm going to pause 31 seconds in.
dying
quickly.
woman of
We see the
negotiable
door open. Is
affections.
that you opening the door?
Yeah, that was me opening the door.
And in the back, that is Donna Castleberry then?
Yes.
Yeah, I met with Ian in Texas last week, and he got the shoot my carry pistol.
Officer Mitchell and Officer Carter?
You were in San Antonio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause my brother lived in San Antonio until 3 weeks ago. But then he moved back to Utah.
Okay, we're at 1 minute, 1 second. The sound's now kicking in, right?
Yep.
Okay. And we got Officer Carter helping.
Yeah, so they bandaged up his right hand.
Okay, so we're just going to assume by
You want to take him to 8 and 16 sub? Have Matt meet you there?
They didn't even dim the lights in the courtroom. So she was a daytime sex worker.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. You're good. That's what I'm saying here.
And I heard the negotiated price was $25, which
Yes.
is kind of a dollar store sex worker
Yeah.
level.
So we can just assume by statistics that he's right-handed and his right hand was slashed.
You might want to throw her in a car too.
They're not really hurrying to save her life.
She
Are
was
they?
with him though.
No, she must be.
You're referring to putting someone
obviously
in a
dead.
car, or those people that were at the scene?
Yeah, so I saw her walking to the side, so I was like, well, she was standing there as well. I think she was the female that I walked past. And I was like, hey, go ahead and have her seat in the car as well, to secure the witnesses.
So you're unsure whether or not anybody saw anything, but you
Right.
thought they needed to be talked to.
Yeah,
Anime
it'd be best
Matsuri,
to
I'll be there
let,
from
you know,
the
her point of
night
view
of
well,
the
in case,
9th of August
that's
until
just
the
how it was.
morning of the
They're
13th.
there,
of
they're,
August.
you know, probably a witness.
I might try to go down. I mean, I'm not interested in the
Oh, I don't give
whatever
two fucks
anime
about
Matsuri is,
animation.
but just to meet up with you guys. I don't know if I'll be able to talk my wife into it. I'll just have gotten back from a 2-week motorcycle trip to Eastern Europe.
Oh, nice.
That might be a hard sell.
Where's the puppy cam? You got to pay for the puppy cam, people. It's $100. We've only got 30. So come on.
Oh no.
The dogs are behind a paywall.
It was my right. Yeah, it's my down here. So he was sitting right here leaning against the doctor.
Closet 348. Who's talking here on screen now, if you know?
So that was Officer Carter talking off to the side in the black uniform shirt. I'm not quite sure who these other officers on the right side are. There's probably one there. So yeah, so the officer.
The defendant says he was just doing a solicitation sting. So he drives up and she ends up offering sex and they negotiate a price and then you make the arrest.
I'm not a cheap whore. I'm an expensive whore.
We're gonna need somebody out of here.
Yeah, you should start a new social media platform, Only Dogs.
Ew.
Yeah, Nick knows Brandon. They know each other.
Yeah. I just want to go to Brandon's house. Just look. I don't even have to touch. I just want to look.
That's where I was last week with Brandon and Donut Operator at their machine gun shoot they did. In fact, I should post those videos up.
Stopping this 5 minutes and 33 seconds in. Is that the medic that's arriving?
Drex has the only German Shepherds sub silo of Only Dogs.
She had to move in. But since the guy was there and she looked pretty dead on him. Yeah, cut off him.
Well, see, now they don't seem to be too concerned about that cut on his hand. This whole tourniquet emergency blood transfusion thing. It's like, he's got a cut on his hand.
As well. Yeah, we did until we got here. Yeah.
I'm going to boost this a little bit.
Yeah. And the trickle down of information probably got to you anyways in time. Yeah, I'm saying we're going so. Heart still beating? Just a bunch of squads are on the way.
What is all this? I mean,
it's unnecessary, whatever it is.
yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. It's how's this going to help the jury?
Mhm.
I can follow if you want.
I mean, maybe something happens later. They're just doing the whole thing for completeness.
I was listening for statements made by the officer, but I'm not hearing anything.
I don't think it shows that the police don't care about a dead hooker, folks. Listen, I worked on an ambulance crew. Sometimes you get to a scene and the person's they're just dead. There's nothing to be done.
Well, see, I'm of the view. This is, I don't know, because I have a deranged sense of humor. I just keep thinking of this scene from Archer.
Oh my God! You killed a hooker.
Call girl.
No,
She was a
Cyril. When they're dead, they're just hookers.
That's just the only thing going through my sick, twisted mind right at this point in time. But,
hey Jeff, can you pop up?
Yes.
Can you pop up an image for a
Yes.
second? Let me put it up here. Someone had asked in the comments if Brendan and Donut Operator were super short. They're not super short. I'm 6'1" in the middle there, so they're maybe a little bit shorter than me, an inch or two, but that's them.
Hey, I'm an inch or two shorter than you, and I'm, yeah. Well, that's Nick's thing. You're like 6 feet or not 6 feet.
Right. Yeah.
I was taller a few years ago, but I'm old. All right. Just like that Archer clip is the only thing that's been going through my head for about 20 minutes now.
There's a bag we see it. We're 10-15 into this video, and it's in there for a minute. Do you know where that came from?
I think that's the medic's bag. When he arrived, he came up and set it down, I think.
They're gonna want to push back even more of that.
At about 11 minutes in, what is that you're signing?
That's the guard duty log for the scene.
That just keeps track of who's coming and going?
Yes. That's right.
Why? I don't get it. Here comes the Mormon missionaries.
It all happened inside the car from what it seems like. Casings and so that.
Okay, so they're saying it all happened inside the car.
Does that conclude the body camera footage from your camera of this event?
Yes, ma'am.
That was State's Exhibit B. Are those typically put on a CD?
They can be. It depends on how. Nowadays we can just download it off the website, but it's normally on CDs.
Okay. And when you look at that on a smaller screen, it's a lot clearer than it probably looked here, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, with the lights and everything. Yeah.
Did a medic also arrive for Mr. Mitchell?
I don't recall. So I heard the one medic talking, and I think he was talking about he didn't know that there was actual shooting. I believe their policy is there was always 2 medics to arrive at a shooting scene, and only the one medic had arrived. So I think that's what he was referring to. So I think the one medic arrived, and they kind of split and kind of treated both of them at the same time. but.
Fair enough if you don't recall.
Yeah, I don't remember, but.
Are you familiar with safety or child
No,
locks?
she was in the car the whole time.
Yes, ma'am.
And if there's a vehicle with child locks engaged or safety locks, I'm not sure what term you want to use, can you open the vehicle from the interior?
If the child lock is engaged now.
Can you open it from the exterior?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time.
Cross-examination?
We're not getting the feed. Up there. We did. We can deal with it after the witness.
Oh, you're not getting it here? Do I need to do so?
All right, we can skip through this
Too
a little
fast.
bit
I'm
here.
sure Carla will yell at me. But if you don't understand my questions, please just let me know and I'll rephrase. You said you've been a police officer for 16 years come July?
Come July, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your service to our community. During your tenure as a police officer, you've had to arrest people several times, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You've probably encountered hundreds, if not thousands of arrests, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And in order to make an arrest, Officer McDaniel, you have to have probable cause or the elements in order to make that arrest lawful, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Once you have probable cause, you then tell that suspect, hey, you're under arrest, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You tell them the charges for which they're under arrest, correct?
Not always, but after the fact, yeah.
And then you proceed to handcuff them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
This is typically the same process no matter if it's a drunk driving case or a disorderly conduct case, correct?
Normally, yes.
Now, if you have the elements for an arrest and you're alone, as you were back in August of 2018, you can make that arrest while you're by yourself, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is sped up to
I want to talk
1.25.
to
We're
you,
trying
switch
to
gears a little
catch
bit
up.
about
A little
taking
bit
a
behind
suspect
here.
to jail versus summonsing a suspect in. Just because you charge someone with an
are
offense doesn't mean that you're definitely taking them to
1
jail,
hour and
correct?
3 minutes behind.
You as an officer, especially for misdemeanors, have the discretion to take the person to jail, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Or issue them in on a summons, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
A summons is a piece of paper providing that you provide to the suspect that tells them when their court date is and where their court date is, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, back in August of 2018, however, the only time that you did not have discretion as a police officer for a misdemeanor case is when the person had a warrant, correct?
Correct.
So back in 2018, hypothetically, if a person had a warrant out for their arrest, you had no discretion. You could not issue them a summons, right?
It depends on the warrant. Some you could drive them to the courthouse if it's a traffic ticket, and there's a cash payout they would have to do.
If
But
it was-
normally, if it's a warrant about a misdemeanor, or it's one where they have to go see a judge, basically.
Let's say if it was a warrant that a judge issued for a failure to appear, you would have to take them into custody, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You would have to take them to jail, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you had no discretion back in August of 2018 if that person had a warrant for a failure to appear.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to switch gears and talk about compliance now. Certainly, you've come into contact with many different types of people when it comes to compliance, right?
She's wearing
Some
those
are very
form-fitting
compliant.
skirts.
Others,
She
not so
knows
much.
what she's doing.
Yes, ma'am.
When you approach a suspect, you start from the premise to proceed
She
with
still
caution,
hasn't
correct?
discovered the art of
You start
hairbrushing
with the
yet.
premise that, hey, people, most of the time, some of the times, are not compliant, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you're trained, Officer McDaniel, to expect the unexpected, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And in your dealings with suspects that you have arrested, I'm sure there's a difference between a sober person being compliant and an intoxicated person being compliant, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say a sober person is typically more compliant than an intoxicated person?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm sure you've come into counter with people who are high on drugs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say that sober person, when compared to somebody who is high on drugs, the sober person is more compliant, correct?
No bullshit. It depends
You
what
would agree
drug
with
it
me
is.
that an intoxicated person or a person who is high on drugs, certainly more unpredictable, correct?
They can be, yeah.
Now, depending on the level of compliance or lack thereof, you may have to use force to effectuate an arrest, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're allowed to do that, Officer McDaniel, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When you took an oath as a police officer, that bestowed upon you the power to effectuate an arrest, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say,
Slow down a little. Slow down a little bit.
that's one time.
Slow down,
So-
you
I
Matt
saw
said.
Carly turn
Sorry,
around.
Carla, I gotta see,
Got to hit a button.
the Elmo's in my view. Okay. Fair to say, Officer McDaniel, whenever you put handcuffs on
She didn't
someone,
slow down.
use your hands, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to place your hands on them, correct?
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
You have to use your hands in order to get them the suspect's hands behind their back, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're allowed to do that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're allowed to use force to effectuate an arrest, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Hypothetically, officer, you go to arrest someone and you tell them, I'm going to put handcuffs on you for my safety. And they tell you, no, I'm not going in handcuffs. What does that mean to you?
They're not being compliant.
It's a sign of noncompliance, correct?
Yes.
It's a danger cue.
Huge at
If
times.
they know
but
you're-
Yeah, it can be. It's like, oh, here we go.
Certainly it heightens your awareness, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's like, here we go, correct? Now, they're not allowed to tell you, no, I'm not under arrest, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Fair to say that when you go to arrest someone, you want to know as much about what is on that person as possible, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So every single person you have ever arrested, you ask them, hey, do you have any weapons on you, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Or after the arrest, I search. So make sure there's no weapons.
But certainly you ask them if they have any
Right.
weapons first.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to come into contact with a weapon on their body, let's say a knife or anything like that, right? That's for your safety, correct?
Correct.
Now, in that same hypothetical, Officer McDaniel, if you ask that person, hey, do you have any weapons on you? And they don't answer you, that's certainly a sign of noncompliance, correct?
Yeah. Or
And
trying to be
no,
deceptive
that's
if you want.
that's
You could try to
exercising
be
your right to
deceptive.
silence.
It would certainly alert you to the fact, hey, this person is not answering my questions, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Same hypothetical, Officer McDaniel, you try to put handcuffs on the suspect. The suspect starts screaming, get your hands off me, and then starts to fight. Definitely a sign of noncompliance, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Another alert,
Yes, ma'am.
at this point, your alertness is heightened, correct?
Yeah.
Certainly a danger cue, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That person, then that suspect, Officer McDaniel, is then not allowed to physically resist arrest, correct?
Correct.
At that point, that person has no lawful right to resist arrest, right?
Correct.
And if they physically resist arrest, in that moment, Officer McDaniel, you're focused on their actions of the resistance, correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to stop, gain their control so that way I don't get hurt and they don't get hurt.
And you get to shoot
So,
them, correct?
You don't care necessarily why they are resisting, right?
At the time, it doesn't go through your head.
Right. And all you know is that once they begin with noncompliance, escalate to physically resisting, all you want to do is get that suspect under control, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if a suspect tells you they're not complying and then they physically resist arrest once you try to put handcuffs on them, certainly you're not the aggressor in that situation, right?
Say, what was the question again?
Come on, Judge, pay attention.
The suspect tells you they are not complying and then they physically resist arrest. Once you try to put handcuffs on them, certainly you are not the aggressor in that situation.
You are actually, but it's lawful.
Can you say it again?
Sure.
Sorry.
So when a suspect tells you they're not complying,
Right.
they physically resist arrest, you go to put handcuffs on them, you're not the aggressor in that situation, are you?
No, I'm actively trying to get them under control.
Correct, because the suspect is aggressor by not complying, right?
Right.
The suspect is the aggressor by physically resisting, correct?
Correct.
The suspect isn't trying to defend themselves against you, right?
So it's hard to judge what's going through their head at the time.
Right. These
You
are
don't care
legal
what's going on in their
questions.
head, right?
That's why I'm just trying to get control.
You're trying to get control because you're focused on their actions of physically resisting, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
The suspect's actions aren't lawfully defensive. They're not allowed to say, no, I'm not under arrest, right?
Correct.
They're not allowed to physically resist.
I do like this
Resisting
officer. I
arrest
think
is
he's
a
good
charge in and
guy.
of itself, correct, Officer McDaniels?
Yes, ma'am.
Hypothetically, officer, if that same suspect introduces a weapon into the equation, then uses it to attack you while you're making a lawful arrest, again, who is the aggressor in that situation?
The suspect.
The suspect's the aggressor. The suspect's attack on you certainly, again, at that point is not defensive, right?
Correct. Not against me, no.
They're on the offensive, right?
Correct.
They are trying to attack you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Training doesn't say that the suspect, you're not trained to know that the suspect is acting defensively, right?
No, ma'am.
In fact, training doesn't even dictate that you are to look into the suspect's mind and speculate as to what their intent was, correct?
Correct.
At that point, again, officer, you do not care why they're attacking you, right?
Right.
Your training tells you to focus on their actions, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Not their words.
No.
When their words don't match their actions, you're trained to focus on actions, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You would agree with me that training dictates that an action is always faster than a reaction.
Yes, ma'am.
At that point, Officer McDaniel, in that hypothetical, that person is dangerous, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a duty to take that person into custody, correct?
Yes.
Your training tells you that you can't run away from the threat, right? Training tells you that you have to go toward the threat, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's your duty to take that person into custody, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
The suspect, according to your training, is not allowed to say, I don't believe you're an officer, therefore you're not arresting me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
At that point, you go to make an arrest. It is lawful, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but he's wearing a uniform. This dude was an
The
unmarked
suspect,
car,
Officer
in
McDaniel,
plain clothes,
doesn't
no
get a jail
badge,
out-
no
get-
radio.
Doesn't get a get out of jail free card
Ah.
just because they don't believe you're an officer, right?
Correct.
Certainly, you've had people tell you
That should be the
they don't believe that
redirect,
you're
of
an
course,
officer even
right?
while in
Have you
uniform,
ever
right?
arrested someone
That
without
doesn't
your
matter,
badge?
does it?
Have you ever
You
arrested
still
someone
have
out
to
of
arrest the
uniform
person
without a
if they violated the
radio?
law, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, certainly, you've run into this with sovereign citizens before, correct, Officer McDaniel?
Luckily, I never have.
Oh, well, lucky for you.
Sovereign
Do you know
citizen.
what a sovereign citizen is?
Yes, ma'am.
Your colleagues have certainly run into sovereign citizens
yes, ma'am.
before, right? Tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a sovereign citizen is.
So based on my basic belief is they don't
Irrelevant.
really,
What the fuck?
recognize the laws of the United States, the state, at all, basically.
They don't believe that they're subject to the laws of the United States, right? So you've seen
So
situations
the
where your
hooker's a
colleagues
sob
have gone
sit?
to
Come
arrest
on.
a sovereign citizen and they say, nope, don't care you're a police officer, not subject to the laws of the United States. And yet your colleague still has to take them into custody, correct?
Yeah, I've never personally seen it, but I've seen it, in general on videos and such from training.
Fair enough, officer. You're trained on the use of force continuum, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That use of force continuum goes from 0, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All the way to 8, right?
Yep.
In a situation, Officer McDaniel,
0
can
to
escalate
8?
from
That's
0 to
weird.
8 in a
Yeah.
matter of milliseconds, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to take you back, officer, to August 23rd of 2018. We saw on your body camera you pull up to 365 South Yale, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You get out of your cruiser? Right.
Yes,
When you first pull up, you see my client sitting with his back up against the driver's side door, I apologize, correct? The door was opened. You see a cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Didn't touch a cell phone. Saw a gun also, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Didn't touch the gun either.
No, ma'am.
Both are on the ground, right?
Yes, ma'am.
A tourniquet was being placed on my client, correct?
I believe so. I don't think you see in the video, but I think that Officer Carr's putting that tourniquet.
Tourniquet?
Tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a tourniquet is.
So the tourniquet is applied. If there's a wound, you apply it on so that way it stops the gushing of blood because the blood's not controlled. Obviously, you saw his hand wrapped up. That wasn't stopping bleeding, so you got to go above and place that compression on to stop the bleeding.
So the tourniquet is used to stop a person from bleeding out, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been trained, or CPD has been trained to place a tourniquet on a person because that person, in essence, can bleed out and die, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Your attention, Officer McDaniel, was on the suspect in the back seat, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You did not know if she had a weapon on her. Did not know what she had allegedly done, correct?
Correct.
You open up the back passenger side door, as shown on your body-worn camera.
Yes, ma'am.
And there were 2 civilians on the scene, correct?
Yes.
They were in separate cars being interviewed, as you stated.
Mhm.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Okay, that's a signal she's done.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Officer McDaniel. At this time, I have no further questions.
Any redirect?
There better be some redirect.
Officer McDaniel, are you aware of instances where someone with a warrant was released or cut a break and told just go on down to the courthouse and take care of it?
That has happened in the past, yeah.
Why do you carry a badge, Officer McDaniel?
So that way it
there you
signifies I'm a police officer.
And when you're working undercover, where do you put your badge if it's not apparent on you?
You're supposed to keep it concealed. So
You're supposed to
so
keep
you're not
it.
obviously readily, hey, that's a police officer. So because you're obviously undercover for a reason, for whatever reason it may be.
Sure. But you could pull it out and you use that as a piece of identification, right?
If I ever come face to face, yeah. If we're having it.
When you're dealing with a suspect, or just the general public, you're approaching someone to see what's going on in a situation. Do you like to talk to them? Do you have conversations?
In my uniform or in plain clothes?
Either.
Normally, when I have worked in any kind of plain clothes capacity, I try not to have contact. It's more of I'm more in a surveillance kind of capacity, whereas you don't obviously want to draw attention to yourself. When I've only ran into it on a couple instances, I think, where I have, but I'll have my badge in my dominant hand, and I'll knock, and if somebody comes when they came to the door, I'll be like, hey, I'm so and so. To give an example.
And that was a bad question, so I don't
Yeah.
want to make you try to explain.
Okay.
I just meant if you tell somebody, for example, you walk up on their car and you're like, hey, I'm stopping you for a traffic violation. You have conversations with that person, right?
Yeah,
This is why I'm here.
Right, yeah.
They talk to you.
Mhm.
You exchange.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you kind
some
of
sort
gauge.
conversation.
Yeah, you kind of gauge.
Sorry, go ahead.
You kind of gauge. Oh.
You engage in some sort of conversation.
Yeah, so you kind of gauge the conversation to kind of gauge where they're at, where you're at, kind of, see where the situation might go. Are they going to be compliant? Are they going to be not? So kind of have that conversation to just see how things are going in that incident.
So that helps you decide how's this going to go.
Right.
So you listen to their tone of voice.
Yes, ma'am.
You listen to the words they're saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you trained to de-escalate situations when possible?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you trained to constantly assess and reassess the situation?
Yes, ma'am.
Because circumstances change, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You talked about using force. You're required to use force that is reasonable and proportionate. Would you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you also trained when you're in a dangerous situation and you have an opportunity to get cover if possible?
Yeah, but only if there's the ability to.
Sure.
If time dictates, if you have the time to get cover, if you have the, if it's a short distance, it just all depends on the situation. It's hard to say. So, situationally, it can go 1,000 different ways. So.
Sure. I'm saying if possible. So if possible,
you could.
are you trained to create distance from a suspect? If possible.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. Yeah.
And are you trained to preserve life where possible?
Yes.
Ooh, that wasn't as strong as I would have liked.
May I proceed? Back in 2018, Officer McDaniel, are you aware that it was a policy of CPD that you did not have to have your badge on you at that time?
It depends on the policy. I don't recall.
If you were undercover, you did not have to have your badge on you. You're not aware of if that policy existed.
I'm not aware. No.
If I told you that policy existed, or if I showed you a copy of that policy.
There you go.
Asked and answered. He doesn't know.
This thing.
It's a good question, though.
About the conversations that you have once you're under arrest with someone, or once you're making an arrest, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Once you place that person under arrest, there's nothing in your training manual that dictates you have to continue to negotiate with them in order to convince them that you are in fact a police officer, correct?
Is this, you're saying after they're in handcuffs or?
After you tell them you're under arrest.
Right. Yeah. I don't have to say, hey, I'm the police, comply.
You don't have to negotiate with them, correct?
As a police officer, no.
You're not trained in negotiations, correct?
Well, see, I don't like that. They should at least be able to prove that they're a police officer. I don't like that.
Well, maybe that should be the policy, but of course, what would control here is what policy was actually in effect.
Right.
Officer McDaniel,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pritchard talked to you about having to take cover when possible, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Talked about creating time and distance, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, hypothetically, Officer McDaniel, if somebody slashed you with a knife and that gash required 34 stitches, an emergency blood transfusion, and a surgery, certainly you would think that that person... Certainly you would think that person is a threat, correct?
You're saying if I get stabbed, that person's a threat?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And you'd have to go apprehend that person, correct?
I have to stop the threat.
You'd have to stop the threat, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what your training dictates, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Right, Officer McDaniel, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was interesting.
All right, Jeff, if you could
Yes.
pause it. I'm actually going to have to take off. I've got some stuff
Okay.
coming into the office I got to deal with. This
All right,
looks
sir.
very interesting. I'll see if I can't kind of catch up on my own in parallel with you and maybe jump back on when with
what
whatever
I'm going
point
to
you're
do
at.
is do like lunchtime today, and then tomorrow I'll start with the afternoon session a little bit early, and then sort of try to match it up with the morning session tomorrow. So we'll do like the afternoon session early, and then the morning session tomorrow. So, did that make any sense?
No, I don't understand.
Okay, we'll stop today at the lunch hour, and then
Okay.
tomorrow we'll go back and do the afternoon before the morning session, and then do the morning session live,
Okay. All right.
and
All
then
right.
kind of
All
repeat
right,
that.
I'll keep that in mind. I have to say that the defense is doing what they need to do here. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean, that this guy is entitled to an acquittal. But the boxes that need to be checked off from the defense on the questioning of this cop were all solid. They're checking them off. We'll have to see if checking them off is enough, given the other ambiguities around this case and how much the jury is going to hear about. No, because I don't see any. Like, we know, or at least it's been reported, that there was some dude going around raping sex workers. But how would you get that into evidence here? Because the defendant's not going to say he knew that. The sex worker here is dead. So just because it's a rumor in the neighborhood doesn't mean the jury's going to hear that. It would be difficult. All right. But anyway, I'm going to have to go. Guys, Jeff, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Everybody enjoyed the rest of Jeff's show this morning. Subscribe. Hit that like, thumbs up button, and pay for that damn dog. Take care,
And
guys.
while you're at it, go to lawofselfdefense.com and subscribe and sign up for this course. It's going to be available on Saturday. Do you have time to grift that before you leave? There you
Sure.
go.
I put it back up there.
All right.
Saturday, April 15th, full day Law Self-Defense Advanced course, the only one scheduled for 2023, taught live by me, streamed to you at your computer. This is where we teach you how to be hard to convict, how to be an unattractive target of prosecution if you're ever compelled to use force in defense of yourself, your family, your property. There's only not 4 days left, 3 days left, folks. It's this Saturday. And if you can't make it Saturday, sign up anyway, because we make the replay of the class available to all the registered students. Learn more and register at lawofselfdefense.com/advanced.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I'll send you the
Take care, brother.
link for
Talk
tomorrow
soon.
if you're free. All right. Take care.
Yep.
Have a good day.
I'll look forward to it. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Andrew Brink, a law of self-defense. You cannot have a good self-defense case without him providing the expert opinions, the expert testimony, the expert advice, the expert commentary that you need to make this happen. And that's what it is. Now let's skip ahead here. We had a little bit of a break, and also live Law and Crime went off the air for a little bit, so we get a chance to skip ahead here. So right now we're about 45 minutes behind. But before we get going here, let's quickly talk about these amazing super chats for which I gratefully accept and humbly thank you for from the bottom of my heart. Marv White said, "Yeah, you should get Nick to reach out to the AK guy for even like seriously, Brandon Herrera. I just want to go and look in his house, like looking at his backdrop when he does his stream. Oh my God, I just want to go in the house and just like look." Gnome John says, "Just got here in time for a puppy cam grift. So here's to the fund. We are like $25 away from doggo cam. So, you know, if you want to see the dogs, $25 will get you there." Thank you so much. Marms, hey, thank you so much for the super chat. Only dog subscription payment. Nobody wants the only dogs. Eric Folmes, he lost the same amount of blood found in the van during the Anderson trial. Well, it did require 34 stitches. So in fairness, he did lose quite a bit of blood. Dead Hooker on screen. Thank you so much again. Wolfram, aren't the drive tank guys in Texas you can fire the main guns to? I don't know the drive tank guys. I'll have to check them out. I'm not familiar with them. Notes on a phone. If she did stab him, and first, it's technically self-defense, but anger seems like a motive here. Well, that's what the prosecution's arguing. She stabbed out of self-defense, and he was angry that he got stabbed, so he blasted her. Lacey Pettit, love of Vice's Branca trial watch party. Hate this defense attorney, a Disney princess voice, though. I don't hate her. I mean, she's doing a fairly good job. She's just kind of going about it in an annoying way. And we'll just have to see what both sides present as evidence as we go along. The FBI classifies sovereign citizens as domestic terrorists. The defense attorney just implied the person shot was a terrorist. I don't know where they were going with that whole soft sit thing. I didn't like that because there was nobody said they were a soft sit. But anyway, hey Deegs, what's up? Good morning. Corn Pop says, subscribe to the best channel out there, Legal Vices. Well, thank you so much. Let's go back here to the to the trial. We'll check it out here. And like I said, we're about $25 away from Doggo stream. But they are offline right now. Well, I mean, right now being right now back in the past. Right there.
Evidence, there is an exception, and that is if the attorneys agree to any such fact or any fact.
All right, now I'll be right back in just a second.
Such agreement, stipulation, or admission of facts will be brought to your attention, and you may then regard such fact as being conclusively proved without the necessity of further evidence.
So they're going to stipulate something.
Thank you, Coitford.
I'll be right back.
What's for all the wires down there? You raise your right hand. You solemnly swear, affirm under penalty of perjury, your testimony in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes, I do. Have a seat. Pull yourself up close to the microphone. You may inquire.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning.
Morning.
Can you tell this jury who you are and what you do for a living?
I am actually retired now, but I was previously a Columbus police detective.
And what's your name?
Laura Lee Evans.
Ms. Evans? I noticed you're moving a little slow. Are you okay?
Yeah, have surgery in the morning, so 5 a.m. and placement of a knee, and I decided to break the other one. So
tomorrow morning, correct?
Yes.
Are you okay to talk about this case
Yes,
for
I am.
now? Okay. You know why we're here, right? We're going to talk about August of 2018. Can you tell us what you were doing for Columbus Police back then?
I was working for the Vice Unit.
And what's that mean?
You're asking what we handle?
Yeah.
Kind of an array of things. I normally would handle the juvenile underage buys that we would do for narcotics, and not really necessarily narcotics, but marijuana, alcohol and cigarettes. And then I would also do reversals for them, which are where I would play the part as a prostitute trying to pick up a John either in a hotel or on the street.
Okay, so you would try to pick up Johns occasionally as part of your job with the Vice?
Yes.
Did you have a group of folks in Vice that you worked on a regular basis?
Yes.
That's actually really funny, Eric.
Yes, I did.
Do you see him here in the courtroom this morning?
Yes, I do.
And can you point him out briefly?
We would stipulate both identity and venue.
No, I wouldn't smash. This is like Roseanne. Come on, this is like 1990s Roseanne. No.
Everything we're going to talk about in this trial happened here in Franklin County.
Okay.
And
whoa,
if you
Jacob
can give
Proud.
me a,
Whoa. Well,
kind of a-
timeout. I know we're doing. Whoa, timeout here. Jacob's Proud Madre. Free the puppers. Love you, Jeff. Wow. Thank you so much for that really super generous super chat. That is deeply appreciated. And so there's only one thing we can do at this point. Let's release the dogs. There we go. Doggo cam. The dogs are going to be joining us now. So there we go. And by the way, I invited potentially criminal Sean here, who is also an Ohio resident, but he's actually in court today. So he couldn't join us. But hopefully Branko will join us tomorrow, and maybe Sean will be able to join us tomorrow as well. It's always great to have a local guy. All right. I'm breathing kind of heavily because I had to lift the dogs out of their chairs to get him here. Kingslayer Damocles, the FBI classified services. We already did that. Oh, wait. Sorry. You don't get a twofer. Not today. But anyway, thank you so much. We got the dog cam activated. Appreciate that. And we'll continue. Okay, let's just take a breath here. Let's take our own little breather. We've got done 2 hours into this. We got about 2 hours left, I think, before lunch. We'll just have to see what time they decide to have lunch. We've got our like and subscribe poll set up. Please like the video. We've got 632 of you viewing right now and 633 likes. That's a pretty damn good ratio. And as far as super chats go, thank you so much for everybody that's been so generous. Continue doing that. I will continue to read them as they come in. Subscribe. Currently, subscribers, we have 35,997. We need 3 more subscribers to get to 36,000. YouTube is just randomly canceling people's subscriptions for no good reason whatsoever. So please, if you have not subscribed, do me that favor. 3 of you subscribe to get me up to 36,000. And if you've already subscribed to my channel, please double check to make sure you've subscribed. Then take our poll. Our little like and subscribe poll is set up here. Do you like this video? Are you subscribed? Yes. Yes, I'm sure. Of course, I'm sure. I checked again, and you made me look, but I'm subscribed. 13% of you said, yes, you're sure. 19% of you said, of course, you're sure. You checked again. 22% of you said, you made me look, but I'm subbed. And 46% of you said, yes, you are subscribed. All right. No, Sean does not replace the doggo cam. Sean would be in addition to the doggo cam. So just keep that straight in your brain. Hopefully Sean will be here. I'm loving Danny On's coverage of Doomsday. Mommy is soul crushing. The content is. I'm so grateful for local content, expert commentary. Yeah, Danny On is she's tweeting from inside the courtroom what's happening in the Daybell trial, and then later on in the day she'll be doing her stream as to what's going on. She'll give you a live update. There we go. All right. Gosh, thank you again so much, Jacob's Proud Madre, for that generous super chat. Let's get back to 1990s Roseanne giving her testimony here. Jane Zanis, new member. Jane Zanis, thank you so much for joining the Clean and Sober crew. That is really super awesome, and I'm glad you're here. All right, let's go. Come on, Roseanne. What are you going to testify to?
Overview of what your group did on a daily basis. What kind of stuff were you doing?
We would normally come in and.
She sounds like Roseanne too.
Normally the guys would go out later on though and pick up girls, if that would be the case. I would go out afterwards if that way they could clean up the street a little bit before I went out. I think that day we had firearms.
Well, she was like she was faking to be a hooker. Okay.
So and again, I just want to get this straight in my head. The general stuff. You would say the guys would go out and pick up girls to clean up the street.
Yes.
What's that mean?
That means pick them up so that I'm not having to be pressed for business, put it that way.
So if you were going to go out and pretend to be a prostitute that night, they would go kind of.
The only thing worse than a hooker is a
And is that
fake
what was
hooker.
happening the morning in question here?
Actually, we had just started with the guys, yes, going out and picking up women, yes.
And while the guys, and you talked, it's Andrew Mitchell. Who else was one of the guys there?
We had Daryl McKissick, who was out there. He had actually just gotten one prior to that. I would search the females also for them before they were transported to jail. So I was searching his female at the time. I believe Jim Mathis was there and Brian Key was there. Sarge was there. Sergeant Mike Evans, I'm sorry. And Andy.
So it sounds like 5 or 6 people maybe?
Yeah.
And were you the only female? Yes. Okay. Now you mentioned that you would search the women. How was it that you were aware that someone needed to be searched?
They would text me.
So did you guys have a group text of some sort?
Yeah, we usually kept a group text going with whoever was on for the day. We would make one.
Okay. And if things went as normal, I guess, when you searched a girl, what happened then?
I'm not sure.
After you searched a girl, did you just hand it back over to take them downtown, or what happened?
Yeah, they would normally be waiting for a transport from a cruiser to actually take them downtown if they had warrants.
And were there any locations that you used specifically to stage these girls or to make these searches and arrests?
Yeah, there were places that we
And
liked to
Lacey
use that had
Pettit has
parking lots and things that we
upgraded
could
her
use.
membership
So
to the
noticeable. We
Bent
do normally use for the
Halos
Hilltop area.
and
We would try to use the
Broken
library.
Wings. Thank you
Those
so
big-
much, Lacey. That is super
Yes,
generous of
and then
you.
for the bottoms, we would use the
Wow.
Princeton Club quite often. I could go anywhere they needed me to go though, but those were kind of common areas. So
So typically, what you're saying is if one of these guys picked up a girl, got the elements for prostitution, they would just drive straight to one of these two places? And do-
most likely, yes.
But did it happen that occasionally you had to go to wherever it is they decided that they
Yes,
needed
it
a
did.
search?
I mean, normally they would stop and try to get the cuffs on while they're not driving. And then once everything was fine, they would either take her there or have me come to them.
And in this situation, when you're doing this work, are you in a cruiser?
No, I'm in a plane car.
You're in an undercover car? Are the other guys in undercover cars as well?
Yes.
Okay. Are you wearing a uniform?
No.
Just dressed normally? What kind of undercover car were you using?
I believe I had my silver Honda Civic at the time,
Okay. So if somebody drove by, they would have no idea you were a police officer.
unless they knew me or see me. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Did you carry walkie-talkies generally?
Yes.
Okay. Did you carry mace?
Yes.
Did you carry your badge?
Yes.
Did you carry your plastic ID card?
Yes.
Carrying the badge, okay.
Did you carry any recording devices?
If you're going to be doing a type of stop like that, then yes, but I normally have one. It's just not ready to go until I need it.
And for you, what was that recording device?
I actually had a phone that looks like a phone, but it actually was a recorder.
Okay.
All
You
right.
know what, would this apply to the guys as well? The kind of things they were carrying?
There's many devices they could have used, several. So I believe most of them could just use their regular phone for that to record the audio and even video. But yeah, I just normally had the recorder to keep it separate from my phone.
And so you're saying they could just.
Is that a wig, ladies?
iPhone or whatever it
I'm
is
just
on
curious. Is this like 80s hair or is this like actually a wig? I'm feeling it's like wig vibes, but not that that matters.
Did you
but
carry a
I'm
firearm?
just curious.
Yes.
And is that typical for the guys out there as well to carry firearms?
Yeah.
And we're talking the city issued firearms.
Yes.
Okay. Were these cars equipped with child locks?
Yes.
And what, can you tell the jury what a child lock is?
Child lock is put on for a vehicle so that you can actually lock the doors and the child can't just open it up while you're moving.
But in this case, you're not trying to keep children out, right?
Correct.
Or in, I guess.
Right.
What are you trying to keep in at this point?
You're trying to keep whoever you're arresting in at the time.
So they can't escape. So they
Right,
can't,
correct.
because is it true that prostitutes occasionally try to open the door and bolt?
Almost always, yes.
And these child locks, you cannot open them from the inside, right?
No, I've been locked in myself, so yes.
They blocked you in?
Yes.
How does that happen?
If you're riding along with them to go somewhere and they just forget that they're on because they're normally left on.
Yeah.
So they either have to roll down the window to let me out or I have to reach through.
So they're in the restaurant and you're standing out.
Yeah, excuse me, come get me.
Okay. All right.
Just excuse me.
And what we're describing is standard, normal, how things normally go, right?
Right.
Now, I think you mentioned that you were, I believe you said, and obviously tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you were up at the library on Sullivan and Hague there with McKissick. Is that right? On
Yes,
this morning?
Daryl McKissick.
Okay. And what were you doing for him?
I was searching his female
Okay.
that he had arrested. She was waiting for, she had warrants also.
She had warrants? Okay. And at what point did you become aware that something was going on with Andy Mitchell?
Daryl had told me that he sent a text. I didn't have my phone on me because I was busy, but he told me he sent a text that he was looking for one apparently. And that's normally when you're looking at one, you'll let them know in advance, hey, I'm looking at this girl, so that no other detective actually picks her up also. And he's going to drive around a minute, see if she's still there and get his car ready.
So if they saw one, they would text general location maybe and say, I'm here, I'm looking at one. And that would tell the other guys, you don't need to go here. And then you're going to circle
And
around.
also make sure you have somebody out there, that's
Make sure
close
it's
to you.
not like you undercover.
We need,
To make sure she's not a cop that,
no, to make sure that he has help that's
Okay.
available.
And when you get that first text, do you start heading that way or do you start heading to one of the two?
No, I was still searching. I think I was still going through her purse. So, and I didn't know where he was going or where he was going to take her yet. So I would wait for that.
Okay.
I'll do a meetup if I have time. I'm only going to be in Utah for about 10 days. But if it is, it'll be in Brigham City at the Peach Pit. Not the Peach Pit. Peach City.
It's totally up to you.
Peach Pit was 90210. Never mind. So yeah, if I do something, it'll be there.
Yeah, it's like a phone extraction, so the text messages are following.
Let me take that back.
You may.
These appear to be in backwards order, so I'm going to start with 7 and go in time. I'm going to go chronologically. And if I mess this up, let me know. Okay. This report appears to show, and you've seen this report.
It's not on the screen.
I haven't put it up yet, so it's going to work. This report, you've seen this report before. We've looked at it before, right?
Yes.
And this appears to show text messages between among this group that we just talked about, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that would include Andy Mitchell.
Yes.
And it would include yourself.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show I'm going to start with number 7 here. And
He's
this
got the
appears
Elmo
to be
locked and
coming,
loaded.
at 11:01 in the morning. Is that right?
Yes.
And is this that first text you're talking about?
Yes.
And so this text where the subject and body is anybody out here, is that from Andy Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. And then if we go to the next one, which would be 19 minutes later, is that you saying, yep, defendant at the library, D at the library with one?
Yeah, D is for Daryl though.
For Daryl McKissick?
Yeah, D at the library with one, which means I'm searching his.
Okay, so you're telling, are you just telling Andy, I'm occupied at the moment?
Yes.
Okay. And then it looks like we go a minute later, and is that his response to you?
Yes.
Says okay? Okay.
Turn up the court volume. Do we need to turn up the court volume more than this?
And at this point, is there anything that's
It seems
making you think
kind
he
of
was out of whack?
loud for me.
So now if we go to 11:31.
I guess we can turn up the court
body
volume a
of
little
the
bit if we
text
need to.
Appears to say someone come to take and bellows, please. You recall getting that?
I don't recall getting it. I think I was busy searching the person, things,
Okay.
contents of.
Okay. Are you aware of a take and bellows intersection in Columbus?
No. I did look at that later and I could not make that out. Yeah.
Okay. So you wouldn't know where that is?
No.
Okay. And then the next one, number 3 text says Graz, G-R-A-Z. Were you aware of that one?
No.
Okay. Do you know what that means?
No.
Okay. Then the next one at 11:33 that you received, Bellows, Yale, doesn't believe I'm a cop. Is that also from Andy Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. And is he doing this to you or to the group?
He's doing it to the group.
Okay. And then finally, at 11:35.
Wait, what do you mean she has 2 broken legs? What?
It's like a text that says 10-3.
Yes.
Is that from Andy Mitchell?
Yes.
And what does 10-3 mean?
That means an officer in trouble.
Okay. How did you find out there was an officer in trouble?
I was driving, actually. I didn't know for sure. I just was driving toward an area where we'd had a previous problem the week before where one of our officers had to mace a female out of the prostitution stuff. So I'm assuming we normally have a fight sometimes once a week, it seemed like, where they're fighting with them. So I was just heading toward that area, which I think is close to the railroad tracks or the overpass that goes over. I didn't know where I was going, and then cruisers just blew by me, red light and siren. And I'm like, oh, I don't know for sure. You know, I didn't know what it was, but I just hoped it wasn't that. So I tried my best to kind of see where they were going and follow them. But in a plain car, I couldn't get around some cars. I couldn't run lights like they were. I probably violated a few things going there, but I could not get around to see where they turned off. So I just headed straight, and I was looking for them, looking for anything I could find at the moment until someone had come across, you know, would tell me where it was actually at.
So you're just generally heading from the hilltop toward the bottom?
Yes.
On Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just because your gut tells you that, I mean, did you know he was down in that area?
No.
Okay. But your gut's telling you something's going on?
Right.
Okay. And at what point did you realize that this was in fact, all these cruisers and everything was in fact for Andy Mitchell?
Not until I saw him. Like, I didn't even know this was the actual location. I actually went too far down Sullivan and I come back around into an alley or a street, I can't remember. And then when I made a right-hand turn, I saw cruisers and they were putting up scene tape. So I knew it was bad. I didn't know what it was at that point, but you don't put up scene tape for just a normal fight. So.
Right. Okay, so you go, and I assume you come, you tell whoever's there, I'm a cop, right? Because you're not in uniform. You go under the scene tape. What do you see?
I see Andy is over by the K9 cruiser at the back, and he's got a lot of blood running down his arm. And K9 was there attending to him at the time.
Did you assist him in any way?
Yes, he needed to take off his bracelet and before they were putting the tourniquet on. And so I took the bracelet and put it inside his glove, or a glove, put it that way, that I had on.
Okay. And did you at any point during this see Donna Castleberry?
No.
Did you see anyone else that
There
was
was-
associated with the scene?
There were just people on the street, like I think out on their houses, on their porch and stuff, and other officers that were there.
Okay. What at this point was your official duty?
But as far as I knew, I didn't even know she was there. So I was tending to Andy.
And did you notify any of the other folks in the unit at that point?
Probably not at that point, but a little bit later. I think I received a phone call from my sergeant.
Okay.
So I told him,
Kind of let the group know that something's going on.
yeah,
Were you the first one of your little group of 5 or 6 there to show up?
yes.
But as far as it relates to sealing off the scene, interviewing witnesses, keeping witnesses separated, taking photos, any of that, you weren't any part of that at the time?
No.
What was Andy Mitchell's demeanor when you got to him?
Oh, he was definitely not himself. He was shook. I mean,
Okay. And obviously you could see the blood.
He was shook. What does that mean?
At some point after that, did you ever, while you were there at all, did you see Donna Castleberry?
when they pulled her out of the vehicle, yes.
Okay. And how did she look?
She did not appear to be alive.
Okay.
Did
Did
not
you
appear
notice
to
the
be
condition
alive.
of the car at all, Andy Mitchell's car?
Did you check?
Yeah, he was pulled up against the building, close to the building, which is a normal thing to put the door up against there so that they can't run out.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed his phone.
So
on
she
the
can't
ground,
escape, you mean?
and then his rear tire, I believe, was flat. I'm not sure. Door was open. I didn't go up far enough to actually see her. I guess she ended up being in the back seat. So I didn't want to go rustling through stuff. So I backed off.
You mentioned that the car's pulled up against the building, and you say that's normal procedure?
Yes, a building, a pole, or anything you can find. As soon as you get the elements of the crime that you need, you're going to need to do that as soon as possible, because if you don't, this could have happened while they were driving.
So it's your policy then, if you're making a prostitution sting, you're with the child locks and the way you pull up, you're trying to make this car kind of a cage as much as you possibly can.
Right.
Huh.
And I don't believe the child locks will work on the front door anyway.
Okay, okay. At least they've never locked you in the front, right?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Stop helping the defense,
At some point,
prosecution witness.
did Mr. Mitchell get taken to the hospital?
Yes.
And were you there for that?
I believe I was. I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you know when you left the Yale address?
I don't know what time it was. I know that my lieutenant had asked me, Andy had requested something to drink. So my lieutenant gave me some money and told me to stop and get something before I went to the hospital, which is where he was going.
Okay. I'm sorry. I honestly do sometimes
So-
have trouble hearing you.
Okay.
But you stopped, you were
She's
in charge of
claiming to
collecting
be a
money, so
hooker.
they-
Another cop gives her
Lieutenant just
money,
gave me
tells her to
money, and I
go
stopped at
buy
the
something
WDF
before she
or
goes to the
WDF
hospital.
And got him some Powerade and took it to the hospital.
Okay, so you went and did you do that? You went to the hospital
After I
and took him drinks?
No.
And which hospital was that?
Grant downtown.
Okay, and did the rest of your group show up at that point?
Yes.
And you guys were concerned about Andy Mitchell's well-being?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had contact with Andy Mitchell since that day?
Since when it happened, yes, I went the next day, I believe, to the hospital. I took back his bracelet, cleaned it off, and then I gave it to his wife. And I think I saw him in headquarters one time. I took them all cookies that were up there sitting, not just him, but everybody else that was up
Okay.
there sitting in
Did
headquarters.
you take them cookies or did you
Okay.
eat all the cookies?
Have you talked to him since then?
No.
Why not?
I didn't want it to appear to be biased. I have not contacted him at all while he's been in there. I want people to understand that I will not lie for him. He knows that also, and didn't want to make that appearance.
You consider yourself friends?
Yes.
And you consider yourself friends at that time?
Yes.
And did you guys have relationships, not inappropriate, right, but friend relationships outside of
Oh, yeah.
police?
Andy
Did
worked
you
in a lot of his own
smash?
houses while he was that he owned and rented out, and so he'd offered to do some work in my house for I had a food disposer go bad, and he charged me $80. I think I gave him $100, but and I had to watch his child while his wife was busy at work still, so I watched his little girl while he was fixing stuff in my house. So
Okay, so you know his children.
Wait,
you know
what?
his wife.
Okay,
Have you had any
that
contact,
just sounds weird. There's
with his
nothing
wife
inappropriate.
since-
It just
No,
sounds weird.
A lot of people did try to contact him, and apparently we were just not given, we have to get permission as a police officer to actually see anybody in jail. So everybody that was trying they just kept telling them they were working on it. Every time they would say, hey, is my paperwork done? They're like, oh, we're working on it.
Right.
But
That
so
was,
there's
that's what I was asking. That's like some Dolly Parton
Yes.
hair going on.
But you haven't had any contact with the children or the wife or anybody
No.
since then? Okay.
You may.
Okay, we can skip through a little bit of a sidebar going on here. As soon as I find wait, where's the video that I'm supposed to be skipping through? All right, there we are. Defendant man here. Oh, he seems to have cut himself shaving, or that's a little patch of gray, one of the two.
First and foremost, my name is Mark Collins. Together with my partner, Ms. Stevens, we represent.
Okay, so the prosecution doesn't have any more questions for her. I'm not sure the real purpose of what she just testified to, but okay. And right now we are about 47 minutes ahead. So wow, there's a lot of crossing. She's still on the stand an hour later. Holy crap! All right. And then it looks like they go.
Represent Mr. Mitchell. First and foremost, how is retirement?
Pretty good, except for the surgeries.
Okay. Oh. Second of all, you got the.
Oh wait, so you're
compression
serious?
stuff
She's
right
retired
now?
because of
I just got a
surgeries.
knee brace on for the one that I broke. Yeah. It's
Let me-
broke a piece off and
Oh my God, you guys are
From
serious.
Hips and knees. You're going to be very thankful when you wake up with a replacement.
I
I
hope
promise.
so.
you. And I'm going to call you detective, even though how long have you been retired now?
June 15th last year, so
Right. And how many years?
30 years.
Congratulations. and thank you
Wow.
For your service.
Oh, shut up.
Back in 2018, you had been in Vice, correct?
Yes.
And I think my understanding is you started in Vice about 2016, correct?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, prior to 2016, what different types of positions you had as a police officer.
Prior to that, I was a detective in burglary because you actually need 6 months experience to move into other detective areas. So I did a 8-month stint, I believe, in burglary. And before that, I did 21 years on the street.
And when you say the street, what does that mean for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Patrol.
Okay. And I'm sure you had
Oh wow, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
multiple assignments in patrol, correct?
Yes.
And in patrol, you're wearing your nice uniform and your shiny badge and everything like that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say all those years in patrol, you came into contact with many different types of witnesses or of suspects, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And fair to say that you had to place many people under arrest, correct?
Yes.
Many times you'd have to do that by yourself, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you came into contact with someone, and did you normally tell them when you had the elements, would you tell them, hey, I'm going to arrest you?
Yes.
Okay. And you're trained to do that, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then based on that, you would tell them, hey, I'm going to handcuff you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're trained to do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you would incur different types of noncompliance from those individuals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Noncompliance means resisting arrest,
Yes.
means verbally, you're not going to handcuff me.
Yes.
Could be running away.
Yes.
Okay. Could be getting physical with you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in those
Let's get
situations, is it fair to say
physical.
that
Physical.
sometimes in general, people that you came into contact with that you were going to arrest and told them, if they were sober, you might not have as many issues with them, correct?
Correct.
I'm sure you had some issues with people who were not intoxicated or not.
Okay, so it's
right?
clear that the
But for the
defense
most
is
part,
saying
your
because the last
instincts or your
two
training was, hey,
cross-examinations
everything's
have
going
dealt
according
with
to
the
plan,
fact
right?
that she was
Can you say the same
on
thing for
drugs
people who
or
were
high or
intoxicated
whatever, so
people who were high
therefore
on
she was
drugs?
belligerent and
What would you
non-compliant.
look for in that situation, Detective Evans?
Sometimes they will tell you, I'm going to be dope sick, or no, I'm not going to jail. Can't do that again. Judge told me I'm going to be doing time if I have to go back.
When that happens, that's an alert for you, or danger cue, correct?
Yes.
It means that they're going to be non-compliant.
Right.
Is it fair to say at that point in time, you have to get the cuffs on as quickly as possible?
Yes.
And you're trained to do that because that's for their safety as well as your safety.
Right.
And there's no negotiations at that point in time between you and them about whether or not they're going to agree to be placed in handcuffs, right?
No.
Okay. If they don't comply, that's non-compliance to you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if it gets physical, that's taken up to a different level, correct?
Correct.
And that person's the aggressor, not you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned the term dope sick. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means.
That means that someone that has normally taken drugs on a regular basis, they need that to get back to normal, so to speak. They cannot operate or can't function without having it in their system. And they will often, flail at you. They will vomit. They will do anything they can, and they're so strong. You'd be amazed at the littlest person, how strong they are when they are in this condition.
Okay.
Why do they, based on your training and experience mostly, why do they not want to be incarcerated?
Because they can't get easy access to drugs.
Okay. And you've had actually people that you were arresting saying, hey, I'm dope sick. I don't want to go to jail.
Correct.
Okay. Is that a heightened threat indicator for you?
Yes, it is, because I can't just give them something, so,
And it's not like you can just let them go away at that point, correct?
no, they're under arrest.
Okay. And when you have the elements for someone and you are going to place someone under arrest, you have the legal right to place your physical hands on them, correct?
Yes,
You have to in order to handcuff them, correct?
yes,
They don't have a right not to comply, correct?
correct.
Okay. And I'm sure in your experience as a street officer, as well as a detective, as well as undercover and vice, you've had situations where suspects who were lawfully going to be arrested didn't believe you were an officer, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And in that situation, did you try to show them that you were an officer?
yes,
Does it matter if they don't believe you after a certain point, Detective Evans?
No.
Why not?
because they're under arrest. There's no right to resist if I've done everything I can to show them that.
But
Normally
she,
would deny
they
anyway.
didn't do everything he could do to show.
Does
He
it
didn't
matter
have
what
his
their
badge,
action is
didn't
at
have
that
his
time to do
walkie-talkie, was in an
physically
unmarked
elevating
car,
and
was
being
in
used?
plain clothes.
What are
How
you
was
trying
that
to do
doing
at that
everything he
point?
can to prove he's an
Place them
officer?
under arrest.
And get control of the situation? Okay. You're trained on the force continuum, correct?
Yes,
And 0 is kind of verbal, that type of stuff, all the way up to 8, correct?
yes,
And in every situation that you've encountered, that could take longer or shorter, correct?
Correct.
Could be milliseconds or 2 seconds, right?
Correct.
That whole thing could take a long period of time to go from one level to another, to another, to another on the escalation, correct?
yes,
You're trained to try to de-escalate it before you have to use physical force, correct?
yes,
Okay. So if you go to use physical force and the person's physically resisting, there's no requirement for you then to say, oh, okay, you don't want to be arrested. I'm going to try to negotiate with you and talk you into this.
no,
That's not how you're trained, right?
correct.
Okay. Now, back in 2018, if you came into contact with someone with a misdemeanor, did officers and detectives have the ability to simply write them a summons?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen the process for a summons.
It's a summons to appear in court. So it's just basically them signing a piece of paper
a
stating they
ticket,
will go to court
basically.
on the date that we have issued for them.
Okay, and you, the individual officers or detectives had discretion to do that with misdemeanors.
Yes,
As part of your training in the directives back in 2018, would you have to run a warrant check on that person?
yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen jury what that means.
You would run a background check basically and find out if they had any active warrants at the time. And if they had active warrants, you were required to take them to jail.
Okay. Now, you don't know this person that you're arresting, correct?
No.
So you're trying to find out as much information about them, right?
Right.
And you take that information and how do you actually get a warrant check if you're out in the street?
I usually call on a phone or a radio.
Okay.
whatever I
Yeah,
have.
but he didn't have his radio,
Oh,
did
sorry,
he?
a records unit.
Okay. And then based on
His
that, back in
walkie-talkie.
2018, if someone had a warrant, was there any discretion for you to whether or not they had to go to jail?
No.
They had to go to jail, right?
Yes.
Okay. And would you tell people at times, Detective Evans, hey, if you don't have a warrant, I'm just going to give you a summons?
Yes.
Is that a tactic to try to calm them down and to try to de-escalate the situation?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you're trained to do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the court reporter's typing is
Now, once you
starting to
announce,
drive me
once you
nuts.
have the elements of probable cause and you announce you're going to arrest them, what's going through your mind at that point in time based on your experience and training as you tell someone that you go to handcuff them? What are you looking for?
Any indicators of them pulling away or doing, talking to guys or the girls, but if they're going to pull away, that's probably going to be the point. You're probably going to have some trouble. So you want to do something in advance. Like I said, pull that car up against a door, do something, anything that you can to prevent anything else from happening.
Okay. Mr. Cable, I mean, that is a training aspect.
Mr.
correct?
K. Griffith, you watched
And
the
it's
video a
called
little bit
containment,
ago.
right?
He was just
It's
wearing
not
like
called
I
putting
believe it
someone
was a
in a
blue
cage,
shirt
correct?
and blue
You're
jeans.
taught to contain an area in case
Normal
it goes
street
upside
clothes.
down, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's for your safety as well as the other person's safety, correct? Okay. Now, you're trained to get the cuffs on as quickly as possible, correct?
Yeah, once you've had the elements, yes.
Okay. And again, there's nothing in your training that says if someone doesn't believe you're an officer, that you need to negotiate for a period of time to try to convince them.
No,
Okay. Why not, Detective?
they're under arrest.
Okay.
There's nothing else you can do to negotiate. Like I said, with them, it's not an option.
Yeah, but
Well,
you
someone says,
show that
"Hey,
you're
I don't believe you're
bad
an officer,
or
therefore you
something
can't arrest
to
me." That's
prove
not
you're an
offense,
officer.
correct?
No,
If someone says, hey, I don't believe you're an officer, don't touch me, that's not allowed, correct?
right,
It doesn't matter why they believe it, and you don't care why they believe it, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Mm.
You're trained and your duty is to do what?
Place them under arrest.
When someone is resisting or resisting or
This is
committing
cross-examination of the
physical act against
prosecution
you,
witness.
what are you focused on at that point, Detective?
Safety,
For who?
myself and them.
Okay. Are you focused on their actions as to what they're doing and their resisting or their assaultive nature of you? Or are you focused on what their words and intent are?
No, their actions,
Okay. Why are you focused on their actions?
because they will often say that I'm done, and they're not. It just picks back up right after you kind of, if you say back a little bit. it
Well, if
seems
they're
like-
pointing a gun at you and you're
Are
saying,
you-
oh,
in this
sorry,
course, are
sorry,
you
sorry,
trained
sorry,
that
sorry,
an
sorry.
Action is faster
Yeah.
than reaction.
Yes.
Okay. Tell the ladies and gentlemen jury what that means to you.
other than this, the same thing. It's just you're prepared to look for whatever you're looking at to see their actions and what they're doing. If they are talking a certain way or if they are resisting a certain way, you can almost see their hand going door to door sometimes, just trying to get out whatever they got to do. So you got to look for those clues and that's why you are taught to do this as soon as you get the elements, wherever you're at, try to get that done as soon as possible, because you do not want to have this fight in the middle of the car in the middle of the road and hit some other car that's not even involved in the situation.
So when you're in that situation and they verbally say they're not going to comply and they physically don't comply and there's a tussle, if that suspect brings a knife into the situation, do you care why they brought the knife into the situation?
No.
Are you focused on the action of the knife?
Yes.
And I think you mentioned you've had people, both when you were in your uniform, I believe, as well as undercover, not believe you've been an officer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you had to deal with them and still arrest them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes it's a problem, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a safety issue for both parties.
Yes.
What year did you start in Vice?
I am not positive. I think
Vice Squad.
Okay. And what were your responsibilities specifically to the Vice team in 2018?
I think at the time I was the only female left in Vice, so I kind of had to do all of their searches when they were out. I also took out the underage kids that we would normally get from the Explorers unit that we have, or some of the police officers' kids would volunteer to go buy alcohol at certain bars and certain convenience stores to do compliance checks on the bars and the stores. They would also buy cigarettes, lottery tickets, whatever they could get that they weren't supposed to be able to buy. So I did that probably half the time, and then the other half the time I would do the reversals.
Okay. You mentioned the reversal to Mr. Cable, correct?
Yes.
All right. In that situation, what are the dangers or cues that you're looking for as a female detective doing a reversal?
Sometimes the guys will come in casually. Sometimes they will search the room or wherever I'm at, just trying to look at what we call a decopping. So they are trying to find out whether I'm a cop or not. So they will sometimes go under mattresses, go and shower. They will look around they'll ask to use the bathroom just so they can search that area to see if I would try to make it look like it's used. Bring some things with me, like curling irons or whatever I had. But yeah, they would definitely try to you look for that. That's somebody that's been through the process before.
So when so this is a reversal when you're in a hotel room.
Yes.
And someone's coming in there, a male, prospective John, correct?
Correct.
So you're trying to deceive them that you're actually a police officer, right?
Yes.
And
not where it's
explain to
illegal.
ladies and gentlemen, again, what you mean by decop the room.
I would decop, but there's nothing in there. I don't have anything in there. Unfortunately, I might have a can of mace somewhere hidden. That's about it. But the sergeant would require us to take our weapons actually and put them in a drawer in his room, wherever he was located at. And that's to avoid crossfire.
Okay. And with a male potential John, is there risk physically for you in those situations?
What is it? Is it physically or?
Are there risks associated with a male and you being a female in terms of any confrontation with a John?
Oh yeah. Several of them actually walk in with guns.
Okay.
So yeah, there obviously is.
But in that situation, you have people kind of in the other room and videos and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Okay. How about when you do a reversal out on the street? Explain for the ladies and gentlemen what you mean by that.
A reversal on the street, actually, the guys would go in first, like I said, and swoop up any girls that they could get to clear them out of my way. They would stick me out, and there's usually 4 to 5 at least eyes on me. They're watching me around there, so we're pretty much stationary. We're not moving in a car. I don't normally get into a car. I have got into a car.
Mason McIntyre, what do you mean open and shut case? There hasn't even been any evidence
pretty much
yet.
stationary
Come
to a
on.
certain area, and they will watch me get the elements. I will give the signal. They will come in, follow them to wherever they would need to follow them to.
And in that situation, Detective Head, do you decop yourself?
Oh yeah, I have nothing on me normally. I'm allowed to when I'm on the street to actually, it's not like I'm in a room where I'm going to have crossfire like that, but if there's 3 of us girls out there working and nobody's got a gun and it's dark, yeah, one of us probably should carry. So I would normally try to hide something on me, but it's hard to hide. They're bulky, they're big, it's kind of hard to hide some of those things the smallest guns, I think they even took off our list now that we can even carry. So.
And you know that you may be asked to show what's in your purse, correct?
Yes, I have been. They've asked me to show me my stem. They know if you're out there prostituting, you at least smoke crack, if not something. So I usually keep something fake in there in the purse to be able to show them.
And again, you're trying to deceive them and prove that you're not a police officer.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And when you've conducted arrests or you mentioned you have to search the females as well. Why do you have to search the females versus the male detective?
Because she's a female.
It's just common practice. It's not a necessity as far as, especially if there's extreme circumstances. I mean, if they've got a gun or something, a weapon, the men are allowed to search them, but it's just common practice. We try to have the females search the females.
And then what are some of the things that you found when you've had to search females or their possessions?
Irrelevant.
Oh, everything.
After an arrest.
Everything. They live out these verses. They have
Irrelevant.
now have probably 8 to 10 needles. Used to only have a couple needles, but they'll have 8 to 10 needles. They'll probably
Irrelevant.
Narcan. They'll have Knives, usually, they don't normally carry weapons. I even had one female tell me she would not carry a gun because she would sell it. She could make more money off the gun. So, but almost all of them had a knife because they,
What size knives would you come into contact with?
just normal size. Sometimes it's even a steak knife, but normal pocket knives are small.
Have you ever seen larger ones?
Oh, yeah.
And in that situation, before you search them, do you always ask, hey, do you have any weapons on you?
Yes.
Okay. And that's based on your training, correct?
Correct.
All right. How about, you mentioned to Mr. Cable that they, the techniques are containment. Why, however, Detective, you mentioned that there's a library in one part and something else in another part. Why doesn't an officer or detective undercover have to go back to one of those two places? Why would that not occur?
I mean, why would it not occur?
Again, this is the deceased
I was gonna say, just because of
girl.
the necessity, it's an emergency.
This is
Okay,
the
let me back up. An undercover officer is in a car.
Mhm.
They're supposed to try to steer their way back to the area, correct?
Right.
Okay. Why does that not happen sometimes?
Well, sometimes these girls have been arrested before, several times, and they kind of know as soon as you're hitting that parking lot, that's when they know it's over, and sometimes they will try to take off right before they get there.
Why would a detective not go to those areas and follow the instructions of the female in the car
Why would
in
it
terms of where to go?
Well, it's like an emergency necessity if you can't.
I understand. I'm saying, is there training based on, hey, sometimes if the female prostitute wants you to go a certain way, you should go that way?
Yeah, they would actually guide them to a certain area. We've had a couple cases where the guys were actually being robbed. So they would guide them to a certain area where there would be a dumpster and there'd be two guys hiding behind it.
See,
Come out
she's
and rob
talking
him.
about something totally
And that's
different
she
than what
doing,
was the
pulling them
case
up there to
here.
do that. So we had several
She's
cases of
talking
that.
about how to wrangle John.
Or anything
This
to
is
rough
a
them up.
cop trying to wrangle a
But it's
hooker.
decopping.
This is literally the opposite situation. I don't like it.
Okay.
I think this whole
You
thing is
mentioned
irrelevant.
that people flee. What else have you experienced or based on your training that people will do not to go to jail?
It's just all around of resisting. They will fight. They will obviously cut you, stab you, whatever.
You've heard
they
of
can do.
someone jumping out of the car?
Oh,
moving car.
always. Yeah, they almost always get out of the car. It has happened, not to my knowledge when I was working, but yeah, they've jumped out of the car while it's moving.
And you mentioned decopping the hotel room and decopping yourself. Are you guys also trained to decop the undercover vehicle that you're in?
Yes.
And what does that mean for ladies and gentlemen?
Just take anything out that looks like cops, handcuffs. You don't want your badge hanging around the mirror or any kind of papers laying around that actually look like they're from the court, or the walkie is very large. You're gonna need to hide that somewhere. Their gun, they're gonna need to put it, normally I think it's under their leg or off to the side where it's not near them.
Or
It's hard to
not
keep
anywhere.
close.
He
It's
didn't have his
disposable, so they
walkie-talkie
pat
with
them
him.
down, they reach over, they just try to do everything they can to try to decop them.
So again, you're trying to decop not just your car and that. And were you aware in 2018, the directives, if you were an undercover, there was no requirement for you to carry your badge?
Correct.
Okay. So that is in fact a directive from the Columbus Police Department that in August of 2018, undercover officers weren't required to carry their badge.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Cable talked about the plastic ID. Tell ladies and gentlemen, jury, what's on that ID?
A picture of the officer, normally in either detective wear like this or a uniform shirt.
Uniform white shirt.
Yes.
And that ID also has another purpose, correct?
Yeah, it gets me into doors, certain doors.
So it's not just some little plastic thing. It's something that actually has a code on the back that allows you to get into different access of the Columbus Police Department.
Correct. I have it now because it'll still get me into to work out if I want to go work out or certain buildings.
It'll get you into the
May I see
gym. It
them?
doesn't mean it's going to convince a hooker that you're a police officer. Oh, come on. This hasn't been introduced in depth. Come on. This is stupid. She's retired and she still has her badge.
It's now retired, so it has changed from the old one, but yes.
Oh, I don't like this at all.
Mark, this is defendant's exhibit for demonstrative purpose of 20. Demonstrative purpose. We're gonna get.
Okay, demonstrative evidence. All
Okay.
right.
So on there, that's the badge, correct?
Correct.
Says retired, right?
Yes.
So that has a picture of you and you're undercover.
Yes.
Type situation. Okay.
That was a
And it
picture
tells
like
when it
29
expires,
years ago.
And it has the non-employee stuff on the back, right?
Correct.
Okay. So when you were
Yeah, but anybody can forge those. Anybody can fake those.
So I can't get into workout.
That's why I said demonstrative. So when you were employed by the police department and not retired, the badge was different, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about in general advice back in 2018. What was a sergeant's role in that situation as part of your group when you guys were out working?
I'm sorry, I don't like that.
He was normally close, or at least by phone, we were able to reach him because he would have to come out if anything did happen. Anytime you have a use of mace or anything that, would happen outside of just a normal citation, he would have to be present.
And part of that text chain that you talked about with Mr. Cable, the sergeant's on there as well,
I
correct?
think so. I'm not positive. but
Okay.
yes.
But in general, the sergeant knows where you guys are and if you're working an area.
Yeah, he'll normally ask us, what are you guys going to do? What are you guys going to do today?
Ow,
We had just
shit.
left firearms and he did ask us because we were deciding whether to go to lunch or actually go out and do some work. And
Yeah,
we
now that
decided to
we've
go do some
seen
work,
them,
and
they
yeah,
can
he was
forge
there
them.
also.
Okay. But he's not on the ground in the car actively trying to make arrests for prostitution.
No.
Okay. Supervisor.
Yes.
But when you guys are done for the day, you report to him what occurred that day.
Yes.
Okay. So he knows what's going on in those areas.
Yes.
Okay. Now, once you arrest somebody, you decide whether they have a warrant or not. Do you have to then fill out a U-10-100?
Yes.
And as part of that U-10-100, do you have to fill out an affidavit specific to the vice unit?
Yes.
Okay. And is that affidavit open? Can the public get that affidavit
No. Well, they can go request it, I guess, public request, but
after the fact?
yes.
After it gets filed?
Yes.
Okay. And the U-10-100, they're not available to the public, correct?
No.
And the CPD one is specifically designed for the Columbus Police Department?
Correct.
Okay. So you mentioned to Mr. Cable, and you just mentioned briefly there that your group was at the range earlier that day on August 23rd of 2018.
Yes.
Explain to the ladies and gentlemen what that means.
We were at the range for a qualification. We have to qualify several times a year with our weapons. So
Okay. And when you go to the range, did the
20
whole
more
group
minutes
go?
of her testimony.
Okay. And you remember what the topic was that day?
it was a scenario based. So it was not necessarily just shooting a target to see how many you could get right. It was each scenario was different. It was for each person, and you would go, they would walk you through it, and they would tell you, this is what you got. And mine that day was with a dog, actually.
You mentioned they would walk you through it. Who
I'm
walks
sorry,
you
the
through
ordinance officers that are out there.
it? Okay, so there's someone out there directing what happens at the range, so to speak.
Yes.
And when you said they walk you through it, they're actually walking you through a course, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe the person is behind you, kind of with their hand on you.
Yes.
And that's a controlled environment, correct?
Yes.
Do you have ear gear on?
Yes.
Why do you have ear gear on?
Because it hurts.
Ear gear.
For triggers when you have to shoot a gun without it.
Okay.
Okay,
And I believe they
headphones.
require at least one level of protection, sometimes two.
Yeah, one, you can use the secondary, but you at least have to have one on.
Okay. Explain for ladies and gentlemen, jury, what the first one is, or the first one is, and the second one is.
The first one is going to be the headphones that are just regular headphones that go over your head and your ears. And then there are little foam things that we
Beats
stick
with
inside our ears.
Dre? What are you talking
How
about?
does it sound when you fire a weapon on the range in that controlled environment? Can you
Without-
feel it in your ears?
Oh, yeah, you can feel it.
Okay, okay. And so you actually, is there a classroom section of that part of the training that day?
There usually is, not every time, but yeah, there usually is. And that way, nobody else is getting to watch the
What?
scenario so that the next person doesn't know what's coming up.
Okay, so every person has a different scenario.
All these 17, 20, not
So
144.
you're trying to be trained on whether or not someone, you have to
Maybe
fire a
maybe
weapon
you
at
have
someone
your
blocked.
stream turned down, but
Or
we're at
something because they're a
720.
threat?
Right.
Do they teach you the different levels of threats? Okay, and what are the basic different levels of threat in that scenario?
I'm not sure what you mean by the different levels, but
Different names, I guess, of threats.
they're immediate, or is that what you're looking for? Okay. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. The immediate's the only one coming to me right now, but yeah, each scenario is different.
We're at
It might involve a
1.25
person,
speed.
It might involve an animal, obviously, is what I'd had. I'm in my scenario.
All right, we have a couple things we got to answer here real quick here. 1.5, we're currently at 1.25 speed. This is the first day of trial. They're on the lunch break right now. We're about 20 minutes from the lunch break. And what's going to happen is, well, I'll stick with this as long as I can. And it depends when they come back from lunch. If they come back from lunch soon, then great, we'll continue. If not, what I'll do is I'll do this afternoon's session early tomorrow so that we can match up with the morning session tomorrow live. So I hope to be able to do today's afternoon session before tomorrow morning's live. So hopefully that's what we'll be able to do. We'll see how that goes. Been there, done that says legal advice. You can do a meetup when you're in Utah. I'll be in Texas for Anime Matsuri from August 9th, like late night August 9th through early morning Sunday the 13th. And then I'll be in Utah from the 13th to the 22nd of August, I want to say. If I have time, I will be doing a meetup either at Lake Effect in Salt Lake City or at Peach City in Brigham City, because that's just like some freaking awesome shakes and burgers. I'll just have to see how much time I have. James Andrew Morrison says, LMAO, this is ridiculous. Well, he said he was a cop and he looked fit, so why not? Well, see, that's the problem that I have with this. They're all saying, okay, someone says you're under arrest, you have no, you don't have a right to resist or say you don't believe they're a cop. This is a unmarked vehicle, a plainclothes policeman who doesn't have a badge, who doesn't have a radio, who just shows some sketchy plastic card allegedly. And he says he'll call his friend, he'll text his friend or whatever to verify he's a cop, not 911, not anybody else. So, I don't like the fact that they're saying, okay, I mean, to me, the guy should at least be able to show in some way, shape, or form that there should be at least a reasonable explanation or a reasonable showing that he is an actual police officer. And I mean, it hasn't been introduced into evidence yet, but the rumor is there was rumors of somebody that was raping the street workers. So, I don't like this idea that you can't question whether or not they're actually a real police officer. If she's in a police car and she's saying, I don't believe you're a police officer, that's different. If he's wearing a uniform and she says, I don't believe you're a police officer, that's different. If he's got his badge and his radio and the other police equipment and he says he's a cop, that's different. But again, he's plainclothes, no marked vehicle, no radio, no badge. I don't like this, but and they're having her testify about all these things with her experience as a fake hooker trying to pick up Johns, where the cop is pretending to be a John trying to pick up real hookers. I think those are two absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum things you're trying to show. And I don't know that the experiences and the explanations that are being offered are the same for both of these scenarios. I don't know, but we've got two doggos over here that are kicking it on the doggo cam. And for the drink cam, we're about $40 away from a nice, wonderful shot of whiskey. And we've got some time here before we get to the lunch break. So let's continue with 1990s, early 2000s Roseanne.
Scenario was a dog that's coming at me and going to attack me. And I have the owner in the background who's telling me, don't shoot my dog, don't shoot my dog. And I can't help it. The dog is attacking me, so I have to shoot the dog.
Why did you have to shoot the dog?
Why are you talking about shooting a dog? Why is there no objections? This is absolutely irrelevant.
In terms of that threat, are you trained to stop at a certain point?
You stop when the threat is done.
What happened in your scenario?
No, the dead hooker is a real hooker.
I shot the dog.
The cop was a fake
John.
John.
Screaming in the background how I shot his dog. They actually gave me a clipboard to hold on to see what I would do with it. I actually held on to the clipboard the whole time, but the dog got back up and actually started attacking me again. So my threat wasn't over and I had to shoot it again.
Okay. So in your scenario, there was an immediate threat, right? And then there was a time went by and then the threat came again.
Yes.
Okay. And did you shoot again until the threat stopped?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Irrelevant. What are shooting some dog on us? This has nothing to do with this
You
case.
shoot until the threat is stopped, correct? And to stop mean not moving.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so
And
that was the whole
sometimes
point,
on those
because
courses,
you're allowed to
someone, they
shoot
might
a
turn
threat
person
until
at
it
you and they have
stops
something
moving.
pointed at
So
you, but it's a
therefore, he
vehicle,
was
right?
allowed to shoot the hooker
That's
until
an
she
indeterminate
stopped
threat or a
moving.
non-threat. Does that make sense?
Correct.
And you're trained on that year after year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that's a sterile environment, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's a controlled environment, correct?
Yes.
You can only fire certain ways on the range, right?
Yes.
Okay. And there's distances involved, correct? Okay. Have you ever been trained to defend yourself or against a threat in a small, compact area?
Yes.
Okay. Explain that for ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Part of the courses have the target actually moves in and out. So I think it comes as close as 5 feet away, if I'm right. I remember it'll come as close as that and it'll flip. And you have to decide whether it's, once again, a beer can or a gun that's coming at you and you're at close distance.
Okay.
Some of them will be clear down to the end of the range, which I'm not even sure how long that is, but
So you have to take into account space they are from your time or the level of threat, correct?
yes.
They don't have any trainings, however, inside of a vehicle in a compact space, correct?
Right.
They can't train on those types of situations, right?
No.
Okay.
Yes, he can.
So afterwards, you guys decided whether to go to lunch as a group or whether to go start work.
Right.
I mean, you're already at work,
Right.
but go work an area.
Correct.
And the group made a decision to go work the bottles.
Yes.
Okay. And then you received a text from Andy, correct?
Andy's text.
I
came through
believe
first.
it was
I
just the
busy.
range.
Yeah.
And when you mean Detective McKissick, he's passed away.
He
since
did,
then, correct?
yes.
Okay. So, but what's the reason that everyone is on the group text?
It's so that everybody knows I'm here. I'm in this area, or they're somebody might even be in the Bottoms or in the Hilltop, both looking at the same time. So.
And when you saw the first couple texts, you didn't know what something in Bellows meant, right?
No, I didn't.
Probably in hindsight, do you now realize that it was Yale and Bellows?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And is it fair to say that if someone doesn't believe you're a police officer, you want other people to come so that you can help convince them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is that what you would do in that situation?
Yes, I would try to get there, but I'm not sure what we can actually do as, once again, another ununiformed officer. And especially they will often say they don't believe you're a police officer, even though they know you're a police officer, you know.
And my understanding is, something's up, 10-3, your instinct takes you to start driving towards an area.
Yes.
Cruisers are blowing by you.
Yes.
You can't blow by because you're undercover.
I tried, but yeah.
Okay. And you pull up, and I think you said to Mr. Cable that the scene tape was already up. Okay. Normally, when something happens at a scene, that takes a little time to get the scene tape up, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you have no idea when the situation occurred between Andy and Miss Castleberry, right?
No.
And you got there as fast as you could.
Yes.
But when you got there, the scene tape was already up.
Correct.
Okay. Now, when you pulled up, you said you saw, I think you said a canine officer?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know Officer Carter?
Not personally, but yes, I.
Okay. And you saw him administering a tourniquet.
Yes.
Could you see the gash on Andy's hand at that point in time?
Yeah, I don't think he was actually doing the tourniquet as soon as I pulled up, but yeah, I was taking that off and he was doing that at the same time.
What were you
Or
taking?
taking the bracelet off. I
Okay.
think at the same time he was putting on the tourniquet.
All right. And are you trained in CPD to put a tourniquet on?
Yes.
Why do you have training for a tourniquet?
Basically because your officers might need it. Or anyone else at the time. So they issue each one of us. We usually keep them in that car. Once again, one more thing, you're going to have to decop out of the car, most likely.
And why? What happens so a tourniquet's placed on to stop severe bleeding?
Yes.
What happens if a tourniquet's not placed on? Someone can bleed out and die, correct?
Yes.
Okay. May I
Right.
approach the witness, Your Honor?
There was a hung jury last time.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, Defendant's Exhibit 4. You'll take a look at that.
Those are two different cases. The defendant in this case, there's federal charges that he was kidnapping, hooker, sex.
Okay. So this is Defendant's
Not
Exhibit
much,
4.
Megan.
That's Mr. Mitchell's hand.
We didn't learn.
Okay. So when you went to take the bracelet off, for the record.
Okay, that's the
you-
gash on
you
the
saw
hand.
the type of gash that there was, correct?
Yeah.
You wouldn't consider that a cut, would you?
No.
Okay.
Pretty major.
I'm sorry?
It's pretty major.
Okay. All right.
Oh, that's not it.
And in
What do
your
we want to do?
experience as a
Well,
as a
shit,
police
that's what I
officer,
wanted to do.
what
Too
type
late.
of damage, have you seen the results of a knife being used on someone?
Yes.
What type of damage can a knife cause?
It
What can
cause
kill
severe
you,
damage.
dumbass?
Death?
Yes.
Vicious cuts?
Yes.
Okay. And based on your experience, is that consistent with something of that nature, what you just saw in Defendant's Exhibit 4?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Okay, come on, people. There's 745 people watching Law and Crime, and there's 609 here. We're almost caught up to Law and Crime. That's pretty awesome. Just thought I'd mention that. Let's get back to this. She's got a little bit more time here before they break for lunch. Where are we at? We're about 44 minutes out. And, so there's about 10 more minutes she's got to testify here. We're
Mr.
$40
Cable,
away
child
from a
locks.
shot of
And
whiskey.
I think you said you had a
Woo.
Honda.
Yes.
It had child locks, correct?
Well, it was a two-seater actually.
Okay, so no child locks.
A two-seater actually.
So no child locks. In the four-seaters, there's child locks.
Yes.
But you have to engage the child locks, correct?
Yes.
They're not on.
Hey,
all
from
the time,
Boise.
right?
Say
You have
howdy
to
to
make a
Danny
conscious
on.
decision
She's
to
there in
engage them
courtroom in
order to
Boise.
know that they're on.
Yes.
Okay. So an officer might not know if they're on or not, or if the person engaged them, correct?
Correct.
And you mentioned you were friends with Andy Mitchell, correct?
Yes.
All right. Is it fair to say that your friend group is mostly Columbus police officers?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that most of the people on that unit you're friends with, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned to Mr. Cable, you're not going to lie about anything, or you're not going to try to help Andy Mitchell, correct?
Absolutely not.
In your 31 years of being a police officer, did you ever lie about anything to help somebody? Okay.
No.
Are you professional?
Yes.
Are you a good friend to fellow police officers who you know?
Yes.
Okay. Detective Evans, that's all the questions I have for you. I wish you the best of luck in your
Okay.
surgery and a speedy recovery. Thank you for being here today.
Any redirects?
You realize, detective, that you're probably the first person in the history of trials not to become the most hated person in the world after uttering the phrase, "I shot a dog."
True.
Oh, so it was a real
I owned
dog.
4, so it made me feel really bad. So,
Okay, so it was a real dog she shot.
What kind of dog it was?
it was a Rottweiler.
Okay,
In the
okay.
picture,
So
yeah.
big, mean.
Yes.
Okay. If you're shooting that dog and it tucks tail and runs away, do you keep shooting?
No.
But that's movement, right?
Right. He's leaving me alone.
Okay.
Yes.
So is it that some movement can be interpreted as not aggressive?
Yeah, if they're leaving.
If somebody holds their hands up, right? That's the standard.
Well, they can say that, but they're not. They could still resist afterwards. Yes.
Right. But if they hold their hands up, that's generally
Right.
communicating something to you.
Correct.
Or if they curl up in a ball.
Correct.
Okay. And you mentioned to Mr. Collins that one of the things you look at is, or take into consideration is as you approach them, if they're talking a certain way. So do you take into consideration everything when you're looking at somebody and whether they're a threat?
Yes.
Okay. If you're talking about a threat that somebody is presenting to you and they have a weapon, say a knife, where's your focus?
The knife.
You're going to be focused on that knife, right?
Correct.
You mentioned that when Mr. Collins was talking about a couple
Thank
of
you,
the
Diggs.
things that you use and have for identification, or you're trying to decop. You mentioned the U-10-100.
Yes.
And that's a form that police use.
Yes.
But that form is, if I'm not mistaken, nothing but paper and ink, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's not embossed or anything like that.
No.
Okay. When you're undercover and you're about to arrest somebody, whose responsibility is it to indicate that you are a police officer?
I'm not sure what you mean. You don't always
What?
have to tell them. They just know.
Okay.
Is that what
But
you're
is it your responsibility to tell them I'm a police officer?
Oh yeah, we will if they haven't gotten it. Yes.
Or show them in some way that you're not just there to rob.
Exactly. Show them in some
And you
way you're a
mentioned
police officer.
During the,
Reversals.
reversals when you're out on the street. And I think you said you've got, a lot of guys watching you.
Yes.
And I think you said that's because in part you fear guys can do bad things to you,
They can.
and they have before.
And I think the guys are a little partial to us. I think they
Okay.
just probably fear for us more than most people fear for the men, put it that way.
Right, and they're protective of it.
Yes.
And have you, during all this in your work in Vice, are you aware that prostitutes face danger as well?
Oh, yes.
What kind of danger do prostitutes face?
They get robbed, they get non-payments, they get beaten up.
They get raped?
They can be raped, yes.
Yeah.
And would you consider that, based on your experience, a legitimate worry for
She's a cop.
someone who goes into that?
And
line
you
of
should
work?
care because
Just
the
as it's a legitimate
prosecution
worry
thinks
for
you
you
should.
in your line of work.
Yes.
And I do appreciate you've given us a lot in this jury, a lot of context on how this works, and I appreciate that. I know Mr. Collins does as well. But I just want to make clear, are you making any statements as to what happened inside that car between Andrew Mitchell and Donna Castleberry?
No.
You weren't there?
No.
Okay. That's all I have.
all right, that's good.
Just briefly.
Okay.
Detective, you, since you pride on yourself that you can protect yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't need a bunch of guys looking out for you, right? Okay.
Doesn't mind. I don't mind the help, put it that way.
All right, all right. And Mr. Cable talked to you about if there's a knife or a focus on the threat, right? Okay. And had you already been slashed with a knife, based on your training, you're allowed to believe that that's going to happen again, correct?
Yes.
And that's reasonable, right?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further, Detective. Thank you.
Courtney, you can step down, but I'm going to have you go out that door so you be a little bit easier. So you don't have to negotiate your way through there. Go around.
Yeah, just come out this door right here.
That'll be a lot easier.
All right. Well, that's the end of that testimony. They're going to break for lunch here, I guess, in just a second.
I've got to do this. Oop. Already screwed up one.
I believe that's it.
Do not about.
I got a little bit of
Take our morning break or lunch break. I'm sorry, for that matter. If you can be back here at 1:15, we're going to try and start up about 1:30.
Okay, well, that's 10 minutes from
Do
now.
not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form or express an opinion on the case until it was finally submitted to you. I kept forgetting, so my staff got me one of these reminders.
All right.
Ooh, it's the judge's area covered by the robe. Could we hear the audio again? Oh, you mean the audio of the incident? Okay, yeah, we can do that. I'll have to bring it back up again. Is the judge going to say anything? That snoring dogs back here. I don't think there's anything else the judge says. Yep. It's all right. They are off the air now. Hopefully for about 10 more minutes. Wait, what time did they say they were coming back? Hang on. What the hell time did they say they were coming back?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our morning break, or lunch break, I'm sorry, for that matter. If you can be back here at 1:15.
1:15, holy crap.
Start up about 1:30. Hold on. Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form or express an opinion on the case until it is finally submitted to you. I kept forgetting.
That's a long lunch hour. So they started their lunch hour about 45 minutes ago, which would have been, that would have been 12. That would have been like 11:30. And that's almost a 2-hour lunch break. Okay. All right. That's really long. Wow. All right. Well, that's good for what I was thinking here. So, all right. They're going to have a 2-hour lunch break. Why not? We got snoring dogs back here. They're both knocked out. All right. You were asking for the audio of this incident. We'll play that here, but before we do, a couple things here. First, Deeg says, "I got you, Jeff. Cheers." Yeah, we hit the $200 super chat mark, which is a shot of whiskey. Yeah, why not? But I think it looks as if I've over poured this, but hey, whatever. And this is some of the remains of F-It Friday last week. So this is the remains of the Wild Turkey 17-year bottled in bond Master's Keep whiskey. This is so good. This is just awesome. It's 17-year-old bourbon, one of the oldest bourbons out there. And it is delish. And thank you, Deegs, for making all of this possible. You're awesome. Mm-hmm. That is so good. Whiskey ASMR. It's delicious. All right. Thank you so much for that, Deegs. And Marv White. How much to make Doggo Cam the big stream? We want Doggo Cam to be the big screen. Well, they're just kind of sleeping here now. So there you go. There's the doggos. They're just sleeping. Both of them just chilling. Snoring. I don't know if you can hear the snores. Let me turn the microphone there and see if you can hear the snores. Can you hear the snores? I can hear the snores. I don't know if you. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I turned off the microphone while I was dicking around with it. Don't dick with the microphone. I know it was muted. I was trying to figure out why. I know it just cut out. because if you can see here, you can't see it, but like with these Shure microphones, they have like these invisible buttons on the side. And I was messing around with the microphone trying to get the dogs to snore, and I accidentally, I guess, hit that off switch. Marv White, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh my God, wait a minute, time out. Wait, what the hell? All right, now I have a question. And this is like a legitimate question because I don't know the answer to it. Deegs, you sent 2 separate $50 super chats. Did you mean to do that? I don't know if you just like did one and you thought it didn't go through, so you did it again. So I don't know if you meant to do 2. If you did not mean to do 2, please, by all means, cancel one of them. Except I don't know if you meant to do that or not. But please, if you did not mean to do two $50 super chats, please, for the love of God, cancel one of them. I don't want you to be like, okay, no, don't own it. If you meant to do it, do it. But if you didn't mean to do it, please don't. A larger Godzilla poster. Okay, there. All right, you didn't ask for this, and this has nothing to do with the trial. But hang on, friend. I have to search for something here because I'm thinking of getting a new Godzilla poster. French paper company, is that what it is? No, that's not it. Let me I have to like search for an email here real quick. Sorry. Because I just, I have these I have 4 of them actually, but you can only see one of them back here behind me. All right. Enough of the dogs. Sorry, doggos. You have to take second fiddle to me. So if you look back here, I have a very large, this is a Cthulhu. This is a painting of Cthulhu by an amazing French artist named Francois Berenger. There are all these limited editions, and I think that's this is one of 120 prints that were made. But let me see here. Yeah, so you can kind of see a little bit here. That's Cthulhu back there. I'm like a Cthulhu freak. I've got like a little shrine to Cthulhu here, and so this the same company that markets these limited edition paintings on behalf of Francois Berenger, they also do a Godzilla thing that they just I just got this notification for this new Godzilla poster that I think I really want. And I'm sorry for wasting all your time with this, but I gotta check it out. I gotta get all of your opinions on whether I should go ahead with this or not. Let's see. Godzilla. Because I think it's pretty damn cool. All right. Open. Link in a new tab. Right. Oh, it's sold out. Fuck. God damn it. Oh, I thought he said they made 300 of them. They only made 30 of them. Oh, man. All right. Just so you can see what I'm not getting now. This would have been so awesome. Oh, now I'm crushed. I was thinking too long. Oh, all right. This is the Godzilla poster that I was thinking too long about. And now I've ultimately missed it because I misread that there was 300 and not 30 of them. God damn it. That sucks. That is cool. It's like a Japanese style print. I love that. And I was wondering whether I should get that or not, because I think that is way cool. Now I'm sad. It's very traditional Japanese style, and I can't make it any bigger than that. There we go. Ah, that's cool. Got the whole body. Only 30. Oh, damn it. That hurts. Yeah, it's kind of the. Well, never mind, because there was only 30, not 300. But thank you so much for that. But as I was saying, Deegs, if you did not mean to do that second super chat, please do feel free to cancel it. I do not want to do something that you did not mean to do. I do have now. All right. Before we go back and do the audio, because we'll do the audio and then I'll head off to sleep. But I do kind of have a Cthulhu shrine. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan, and I have this amazing blue leather bound book of all the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. It's blue leather with 24 karat gold embossing. The edges of the paper, they're gilded in 24 karat gold. It has satin front and end paper. Well, silk front and end paper is a satin bookmark. It's on acid-free museum quality paper. It is such a great book. And I've got tons of little Cthulhu idols. I've got like 4 of these amazing paintings. See, and that's why I wanted to hang the paintings here originally, but the lights just reflect what's coming on my computer monitor straight back. So you can't really see them. So that sucks. I have to find out a different way to show them. But I've got 4 of these amazing. This is the smallest Cthulhu painting I own. The other ones are like huge ass paintings. I've got 2 different Cthulhu themed like tobacco pipes, and I have another amazing Cthulhu pipe that's being made by a master Canadian pipe craftsman. As we speak, I should have it within a couple of weeks. So I'm a huge Cthulhu fan. So thank you very much, Aussie Overlord, for that message. If the great ones rise and the world ends, I blame Jeff. You should blame me. All right, that's enough of the hey, Blue Oyster Cult. What a great song. Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah, that was just beautifully, and that crushes me that I misread that. I thought they had 300 of those. They only had 30 of them. How much were they? They were 140 euros. So yeah, it was expensive, but for a limited edition of 30, God damn it. I hate myself. All right. Yeah. Stop it, Jeff. All right. I'll stop it. Fine. Where's Flux when you need her? Flux is probably being a responsible human being and working. All right. That's it. That's enough of this peripheral shenanigans. We've currently got 591 of you here, 756 likes. We're doing some super stuff. And so we're going to wrap this up. And if you're so inclined, we can look at the afternoon session tomorrow. But in a pre-live thing, we'll see how it goes. But before we do that, what did Gandalf's prostate say to Gandalf? You shall not piss. I don't like blocking people, but ooh, that's right on the line. Legal Vices, boss. Soon the legions of Xenu. Xenu is spelled with an X, by the way, not a C. Will arrive and crush your pathetic elder gods and old ones. No, it was not funny. Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him. It's not funny. Stop. All right, I'm just stalling here. I'm trying to bring up the opening statements with the audio of the incident. And again, it's not the full audio. It's not the full audio. They only played an excerpt. The Law and Crime will just play whatever the prosecution puts on, but the prosecution is apparently going to be playing the full audio at some point, or according to the defense, at several points during their case in chief. Sex worker shooting trial day 2. We need sex worker shooting trial day 1. Where are we? All right, I'm on the Law and Crime Network. Go to their live feed. There we are. All right, got the video up. Now we're going to go back to the audio, and I don't know where the audio is. Bear with me real quick here while I give it a Okay, I've got the audio. All right, I'm almost there. Hang on. All right, we've got it. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me while I brought up the audio of the I guess it would be the whatever the recording device was that the defendant had in his police car at the time. Before we get to that again, Jillian N, thank you so much, Jillian N. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you for the wrench, Jeff. I haven't been able to post due to work, so more doggo story incoming. You should also start an ASMR channel with whiskey, whispering, and brushing the dog. Oh my God, brushing the dogs. Holy crap. Now their fur, they're losing their winter fur, and their summer fur is coming in. And it's just like I have a goddamn carpet in my house now. It is so bad. Ugh. Thank you so much for that super chat. Did anyone say the C is always right? No, stop. All right, we'll bring this up here. This is the audio recorded by the defendant. This is part of the audio recorded by the defendant. And if I remember, the defendant, the prosecution is arguing that he is a bad cop who was kidnapping hookers, and in her case, he was trying to do nefarious things with her in exchange for her freedom. She didn't know he was a cop. He didn't have his badge, he was in plain clothes, didn't have his radio, was an unmarked car, and he couldn't substantiate it was a cop, so she calls for help. He tries to do unpleasant things with her. She stabs him in the hand, so he blasts her 3 times. He fires his gun 6 times, but hits her 3 times. The defense is saying the police officer is the aggressor. The prosecution is saying the cop was the aggressor and she was defending herself. And this is kind of this is part of the audio that was recorded by the officer, the defendant.
Can you help me, please? Help you what? On the police line.
Apparently what had happened was somebody was walking by. He couldn't prove that he was a cop to her satisfaction. So she's yelling to a passerby, "Can you help me, please?" He says he's a police officer, but he's not.
Can you help me, please? Help you what? On the police line. I am the police.
I am the police.
I know you're not. And that's false identification. That can get you in a lot of trouble. When you're tracking me and you're saying he was a police officer and he's not a police officer. Yes, I am. He's acting like he's a police officer. And he's not. He has this in a fake ass bag. Kidnapping women. I've already heard about him, and he's already wanted. Just possibly just show me a picture. You know that, right? Yeah, all right. They've been showing the picture. So you fucking. Don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Don't put your hand on me! No! No! She got a knife! No! No! Get off of me! It's coming! No! No! Help me, please! I'm in the back door! Help me! I'm in the back door! He's coming! Get off of me! Please help me! Please help me!
Those were the.
All right, that was part of the audio recorded by the police officer. And again, he's saying he acted in self-defense because she was stabbing him and resisting arrest. She's saying, the prosecution is saying that she stabbed him in self-defense because he was being a creeper, aggressor, again, rapist. So that was just the first day. We'll just have to see what evidence comes out. Still keep an open mind about it. I mean, we have to. Can the state prove it was self-defense? I mean, the state doesn't have to prove a self-defense. The defense has to prove that it was a justifiable killing. They have to prove. The burden is upon the state in Ohio to prove that it was self-defense. So by initiating the self-defense argument, the police officer is essentially admitting that he shot and killed her, which, I mean, of course, there doesn't seem to be any question about that. The prosecution is arguing it is murder. It was intentional murder. He planned it. It should be murder. Or at least it should be voluntary manslaughter, heat of passion, adrenaline pumping, whatever. And there wasn't time to assess or whatever the proper legal standard is in Ohio. But it's up to the state to say, yes, we did that, but it was justified. And here's why. It's up to the defense to say, yes, he did that. He did kill her, but it was justified because of these particular circumstances. I mean, it's a hard to watch audio, but we'll have to see how the defense overcomes that. But that's it now. For some reason, they're going to be continuing their lunch break for 2 hours. So for another 45 minutes, that's where we're going to end it. Let's see who we can funnel people into. I know Ozzy was over here and he plans on starting in 15 minutes. Is that when you're going to start, Oz? Are you going to, or is it 3:00 a.m. my time? When are you starting? You're starting in 15 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes? I'm confused. All right, I'm just kind of looking for folks to dump us into. Oh, as the dogs left Jeff's apartment, Yoda turned to Strawberry and said, "Since Jeff wants us to earn our keep now, I'm going to get an agent. I can use the Force, and I'm even cuter than Baby Yoda." Well, Yoda is essentially Yoda. That's kind of why I named him Yoda, because he sort of looks like Yoda. 4 p.m. Central means nothing to me in Korea. Aussie Overlord is 1 hour ahead of me, so whatever he tells me, I just have to subtract 1. Thank you so much for that, Jillian, and you're a superstar. Aussie doesn't start till tomorrow. No. He starts today, my time. So you guys forget time zones and date lines and things like that. So whatever Aussie Overlord tells me, I just have to add 1 hour to it. Wrong day. I'm live in 5 hours from now. Jesus. Yeah, I'm going to be asleep before 5 hours from now. All righty. Well, let's see who's live that we can take a dump on. Who are we going to dump on today? Let's see. Got to go to my studio. Who are we going to take a dump on? Jillian Ann says, last one for today. Strawberry replied, that's a wonderful idea. But first, let us engage in our vices, legal or otherwise. No, always make sure they're legal vices. Never engage in illegal vices, because that would be wrong. I would never suggest that anyone ever engage in any illegal vices. Only the legal ones. All right, customization. Who is live now? Let me see who. I have to look at my stream here to see who comes up on the redirect stream. Currently on the redirect stream is Law Talk with Mike. He is live right now. if that's it, that's the only person that's live right now is Law Talk with Mike. So what we're going to do is we're going to dump you into Law Talk with Mike. Law Talk with Mike, great guy. It's Mike from Chicago, as usual. All right, everybody, thank you for being here today. Mods, thank you so much for hanging out. Dogs, thank you for sleeping over there and looking cute and encouraging people to contribute to my griftathon. All of you that were here in the chat, the Legal Vices chat is awesome. Thank you for joining us for day 1 and half of day 2. We'll probably do the last half of day 2 and the first half of day 3 tomorrow. Thank you for all of you that have subscribed. If any of you have subscribed, let me check the subscribers here before we wrap this up. Got to check the subscribe page. I got to go to, let's see, where are we? We had 1 subscriber today, whoever that was. Thank you very much. We are currently at 35,998. Screw you, YouTube. YouTube, they play this goddamn game where if you get like too many subscribers too quickly for them, they just totally ratio you out and they just start deleting people randomly from your subscribers. And if you've been paying attention for the last 2-3 weeks, I've been fluctuating daily between like 35,995 and 36,026. It goes up and then it drops back down. Then it goes up, then it drops back down, almost on a daily basis because YouTube is intercoursed. If you haven't subscribed, please do me the favor and subscribe to the channel. And if you've already subscribed, please make sure that you are still subscribed. And how did we do on the poll today? It doesn't really matter because they were all trick answers. Today's like and subscribe poll. 13% of you, when asked, did you like the video? Are you subscribed? Said 13% of you said, yes, I'm sure. 19% of you said, of course, I'm sure. I checked again. 23% of you said, you made me look, but I am subbed. And 45% of you said, yes. Thank you so much for taking the like and subscribe poll today. Join us tomorrow. We'll be back. Just due to the nature of this trial, we probably won't be doing an O.J. Simpson stream tomorrow. We'll probably just check this out again. I'll let you know. Follow me on Twitter at The Legal Vices at Twitter, or here on YouTube at The Legal Vices. Me here, my that one way or the other, figure it out. Yeah, and even Ozzy Overlaw says I'm back to fluctuating 20 to 30 every week or so. It's a thing that YouTube does. I don't know why they do it, and they're dicks for doing it. So make sure you're still subscribed to me, and make sure you're still subscribed to Ozzy Overload. All right, again, we'll wrap it up here. I know I just hate leaving you guys. I know those people are like, okay, we're done with everything today. See y'all tomorrow. Bye. I can't do that. I like hanging with you guys. So it always takes me forever to shut these things down because I don't want to leave you. Mods, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody. You generous freaking super chatters. Thank you so much for everything. Appreciate it. Vice Squad in chat. You're awesome. Couldn't do this without you. Greatest Vice Squad. Only Vice Squad on the internet, I hope. I can't quit chat. Probably not. I'll let you know, Chandler. We'll have to see. I'll have to think about this overnight, and I'll send you a message when I wake up about 7 or 8 hours from now. Let me figure it out. Valhalla waits. We all rock. We know. And thank you to those of you that subscribed. Make sure you're all subscribed. I love y'all. We'll see you later. Good night from Yoda and Dargy Strawberry. Good night, little doggos. Good night from me. And right now you should be joining Law Talk with Mike. Mike from Chicago. Let him know that it's a Legal Vices raid. And say hi. Until tomorrow. We'll see you later. Legal Vices. The Law Racks. Reminding you to do whatever you do, but always make sure you enjoy your legal vices. I'm out.